Press the bell icon on the YouTube app to never miss a video from Newslaundry.
This is a Newslaundry podcast and you're listening to NL Hafta.
अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. Welcome to the 289th episode of Hafta. My God, we've come a long way. Thank you all who have been encouraging us through this journey. We come to you from a very wet and rainy Delhi, which is quite nice actually, I guess, unless for those who probably have their homes flooded. We have had an action-packed week, so we'll try to pack in as much as we can in an hour and a half or 2 hours, however long we go. So if we miss out some stuff, I apologize, but it has really been a very newsy week. On the Hafta this week, we have a guest who has been with us before, Hartosh Singh Bal. Hi, Hartosh.
Hi.
Many of you already know who Hartosh is, but for those of you who are new additions to the Hafta team of listening to our weekly podcast, he's the political editor of Caravan magazine. He's the author of Waters Close Over Us, A Journey Along the Narmada. He's been the political editor at Open magazine. He's the co-author of A Certain Ambiguity, a mathematical novel, which won the Association of American Publishers Award for Best Professional Scholarly Book on Mathematics for 2007. He has worked for the Indian Express, the Helkan Mail today. So you can't be attacked by the science wala saying, ye sale humanities wale journalist bante hain, kuch pata to hota nahi.
No, I used to say these things myself, so how can
How terrible.
Chalo, theek hai, at least you're honest. Also joining us in a studio is Raman Kirpal.
Hi.
Mehraj Lone, who's just returned from his holiday to Kashmir.
Hello.
And Manisha Pande,
Hello.
who's looking forward to her non-existent holiday to the hills, which may or may not happen.
I'm going on holiday on all the money Newslaundry owes me. I am planning one big trip.
Oh, by the way, does Hartosh know we've started paying Hafta panelists now?
So I was collecting back wages. That's why I
Achha, no,
entered it.
this is not a Supreme Court order that's retrospective. It is only from now on you'll be paid for your appearances. And not just that, you will also get a gift hamper. And I will say that we have some fantastic gift hampers coming up. One is the Sabki Dhulai soap set of herbal soaps, really nice. So Hartosh,
You sound like Karan Johar, my
तुम्हारी
gift
त्वचा
hamper.
को कोमल रंगीन बनाने में मददगार करेगी हमारी साबुन, सबकी धुलाई साबुन.
I look forward to this.
And we shall send you the Sabki Dhulai soap set. And by the way, we'll have a Independence Month offer where you can get the Sabki Dhulai soap set. It's a really nice soap set. You can check out the photographs on our Instagram and Twitter. And we'll also have a special scheme for our subscribers. By the way, that will be only available to subscribers. And of course, guests such as Hartosh. Anand Vardhan was supposed to join us, but he was on his way by train back to Patna. And the train is expectedly over 3-4 hours late. He was supposed to have reached at 10 o'clock, so he could join us. It's 12:15 as we start recording this podcast. 12:15 on the 13th of August on a Thursday. So Anand, unfortunately, will not be able to join us this Hafta. He'll come next Hafta then. On that note, Manisha, you just want to go over the headlines and then we can start the discussions?
3 people were killed in police firing in Bengaluru and over 60 police personnel were injured. This is owing to violence over a Facebook post. Even journalists came under attack who were covering this riot that broke out. 3 Caravan reporters were attacked by a mob in northeast Delhi. We have a detailed report on this, so do read that. It's a very harrowing events that unfolded that evening. Sachin Pilot has called truce with Gandhis and with presumably Gehlot.
But has Gehlot called truce? We don't know yet. Pata chalega.
Nalayak nikamma bol ke ab, I don't know how they can go back to being.
We have a lovely song for them at the end of this Hafta.
Today morning's Indian Express report tells us that ED has not been able to find any big transfers to Riya Chakrabarti's account from Sushant Singh Rajput's account. I wonder if TV news channels are going to pick this up, because with the vengeance with which they've gone after Riya, calling her a gold digger and whatnot.
#arrest Riya now.
Yeah. So I mean, this is just
No, they'll pick
the
up
kind
the
of
other
slander
fact.
she's gone through, and now the ED finds out that there's
ED,
I mean, ED itself, it's a bit of a joke that they came in the
has
first place.
just added one more thing. Now we will look into the cash transaction. So
Cash
they couldn't find anything in the.
Yeah, by check. So now they look at
It's a really horrible.
How exactly are they going to do that?
I don't know.
see हर महीने कितना withdraw हुआ
I
था,
don't
वहाँ
know.
कितना deposit हुआ, उसने किससे खर्चा. I have no idea how they'll do it, but I don't think a studio.
But that's what TV channels will pick
Yeah, but
up.
our studio or anchors do not have the brilliance to ask that question.
18 people died after an Air India plane broke into two at Calicut in Kerala. There's also been very devastating landslides there, which also resulted in casualties. Pranab Mukherjee's conditions worsened. He remains on ventilator, though Radip Sardesai bumped him off on Twitter.
Yes.
And then he severely apologized and said, sorry.
Hmm.
Russia has launched its world's first registered COVID-19 vaccine called
Sputnik. And
V.
apparently the name is kind of cocking a snook at US because Sputnik was also their vessel that went to outer space. It was the one that carried Yuri Gagarin, or was it some other?
That was the first spacecraft they launched.
Spacecraft. So yeah. But of course, I don't think anyone's taking it in a hurry. Although Putin said, my daughter's taken it. I want to ask, why haven't you?
Because he is above 60, I suppose.
I have no idea.
So more.
Democrats have picked up Kamala Harris for US vice presidential candidate. Much excitement in India, except India Today anchor Rahul Kanwal warned us that we should not get excited because she cares about human rights.
It was a warning.
So beware, yes.
Beware, she cares about human rights more than being Indian. They are mad, really. These guys have no brain.
Yeah, at least said that.
Oh, brains.
Daughters have equal rights over joint Hindu family property, says Supreme Court, and this will be effective retrospectively. I think it's great.
Yeah, I was a little confused about this. So
Yeah.
basically, just to explain, this had come into effect in 2005.
Yeah.
The only thing was at that time, all property, that would be inherited post 2005, this law would impact. Now it is in retrospect also.
Yes.
The judgment, the court though had a very strange Sasbahu type line thrown in. The judges said a
Daughters,
daughter
yeah.
always remains a loving daughter. A son is a son until he gets a wife. A
Are
daughter
you
is
serious?
a daughter is a daughter throughout
So
life.
were they watching Navika's show where
I think
Navika
so.
said कि जब औरत आती है, she gets possessive about her man.
The evil woman.
They're giving a lot of these kinds of lines these days. No,
What
they said the same
nonsense.
thing about that bail to the person on Janmashtami.
Yeah.
They said Lord Krishna was born in jail. Why
Basically,
do
I
you
think the
want?
problem is most judges are like uncles. They're WhatsApp uncles.
No,
That's
I think
the
they had been doing it. Even in the past, I've seen about 10, 15 years ago. So you had from Purana, they quote, all kind of
problem.
quotes.
They keep quoting that, correct.
No, those are, those
chalo,
are
some-
good
Those are
lines.
to add heft to their judgment.
And also, those are lines with a lot of wisdom. These are just like WhatsApp lines.
So they actually released someone because it was Janmashtami.
No, they
and
said, why
Krishna-
do you want to go? Krishanji was born in jail. This is a lovely time to be in jail.
What?
This is Bobde, I think, right?
That's
And then he asked, do you
disgusting.
still want bail? He said yes. So he said, I don't think you are very religious or
Huh.
something to that effect.
Okay, I totally miss this. Ridiculous. Poet Rahat Indori died at 70.
Hmm.
Zomato has introduced period leave of up to 10 days per year for employees. This got a lot of people talking on social media.
We'll discuss
so,
this
yeah.
here also. 'cause I think
Center allows 4G on trial basis in 2 districts in J&K after August 15.
They
Maybe
haven't
Mehraj
allowed
can-
it yet. They're planning to start it in 2 districts, one in Jammu region, one in Kashmir. But
Okay.
nothing as of yet.
May I just intervene with one piece of news which may be of some interest at this point, which is that Mahant Nitya Gopal Das has tested COVID positive. He
Oh,
was
yeah.
with the PM on stage.
Oh, yeah. Not
doing
only
Pujan, etc.
Oh, so
I
he's
think-
not only was he with the PM even went and shook hands with him and he wasn't wearing a mask. We were very looking at this very
ये बारीकी से
keenly.
देखा.
These
Oh.
Tabligis heading the country. What should we do with them?
I tell you.
Ram Mandir cluster, as Meghnad called it.
Yeah, absolutely.
A 19-year-old in Bulandshahr died. Her parents say that she died in a road accident, but her parents say that she was being chased and harassed by people and she was trying to evade them and she crashed and died. It's a very somber story again. 743 Tirupati temple staff tested COVID-19 positive since June 11th.
Wow, that's a lot.
743. So have they shut the temple? I hope so.
Yeah,
They
the
have.
Tirupati was shut, but more recently. I mean, after much damage had already been done.
ISKCON has been shut. I'm not so sure about
We'll
Tirupati.
just check. Carry on.
Lebanon's government steps down in wake of Beirut blast. Can you imagine a government taking responsibility and stepping down for its actions or inaction in this case?
Let's start off with what happened at Caravan. So we have Hartosh here. Hartosh, could you just give us an idea of just give our audience a context? I'm sure many of them have already read the report on Caravan or on Newslaundry and elsewhere. But just quickly, those who may have not read the report, what happened and what has happened since as far as the law enforcement agencies are concerned?
Okay, so first, yes, I think your reporter has done an excellent job on the report as well. Look, I mean, it's quite clear. We've been reporting persistently and consistently. And 2 of these reporters have been part of that reportage for the past, ever since February, in terms of how BJP politicians, the Delhi police were complicit in, I mean, this is a parallel to 84. This is how exactly the political class and the police and the majoritarian mob dealt with a minority. And we have reported that in great detail. One of the last reports that these people had filed was in that same police station, Bhajanpura, about two women who were earlier complainants being harassed inside the police station by the. They had gone back to pursue this reportage, and they were in a gully where there were saffron flags which were up to celebrate the Bhumi Pujan, where Nritya Gopal Das has tested positive. At that Bhumi Pujan, and they were taking photographs out in the street, not in somebody's house, not of anybody with any permission. This is public space. And they were surrounded by a mob, which after a while, the man who was clearly seems to be orchestrating events came and identified himself as a BJP office bearer. We are going by what was claimed. I'm giving you exact eyewitness account of what happened. Their political affiliations or their ideological affiliations of this place were very clear in any case. They were Hindutva right-wing gathering. They surrounded the reporters, asked them what they were doing there, asked for their ID cards. So there's already this hostility towards the idea of media reporting on them. And we must tie this to the fact that our Prime Minister, admirable Prime Minister in some ways for some people, has decided reporting honestly on what happens on the ground is anti-national. So already there is this perception in the mob. They look at the ID cards, and one of our reporters, Shahid Tantre, is a Muslim from Kashmir. It further provokes their anger, because here you have an anti-national profession being manned by an anti-national, double anti-national Muslim man from Kashmir. And they launch an assault. He hands over the memory card well before this happens. He says, you want anything, take it. This is not the time we are getting into confrontations. This is their clear instructions to them. Because at that point, they had already called me and I'd said, tell them whatever they need, we'll give it. You get out of their safety. During this period of time, the police guys are also standing nearby.
Oh, they were there?
Yeah.
Police guys
For
are
a good
already,
half an hour.
yeah. And assault, Shahid is beaten badly, and Prabjeet sort of interposes himself between Shahid and the mob. And you must see that this is their idea of cultural formation, because he's a turbaned Sikh. He's not attacked or assaulted in the same manner. They are doing the same job at the same place.
Yeah.
And but for Prabjeet's presence there, things would have been far worse. They threatened to lynch him, kill him, the usual, the katua, all the usual standard vocabulary of the Hindu right so delightfully uses was all on display, and the aggression was out of hand. And our third journalist, who I will not name because of, as you will see the sequence of events, was standing to one side. And at one point after the crowd is assaulting Shahid, they've taken the memory card. I think he hands over the camera to her, but I may be mistaken on one or two details. But the crowd knows that she is with them. They shut the gate. So these two journalists are left on one side of the gate. And she tries to run. She's chased by some men. While she's being chased, at some point, a middle-aged the man lifts his dhoti, exposes himself to her. She goes into an adjacent gully which is largely Muslim majority, where you have seen eyewitnesses and a group of 15-20 men and women chase her, catch her, and brutally beat her.
Yeah.
All the while she's trying to get to the police station because she's been separated from those two reporters who are on the other side of the gate. Finally, the police intervenes and takes them to the police station. She finally finds two other policemen, one who does not do much, the second one intervenes and finally gets her to the same police station. And at this point, after all that has happened, and I must say, look, I have been on the field for 25 years. On 3 or 4 occasions, I have been detained from Gujarat to Madhya Pradesh, either by the police, and on 2 occasions by, again, even when they were not in power, by RSS people who didn't like the kind of stories we're planning to do. We've come close to many times. The threat again was there was a Muslim with me. How dare he be there? But never have I encountered what happened with our reporter, what I'm describing in terms of what literally amounts to assault and sexual harassment. I think there should be a more serious word for what happened. I have never encountered this. So in some ways, everything in this government fosters, from patriarchy, gender, Islamophobia, anti-media, all of it lies at the heart of what this mob is doing. Two reporters who've been doing their job honestly, questioning, criticizing police for the last 2 or 3 months. At the police station, complaints are written down, taken down in detail. They even get a medical done. The same people who assaulted them have landed up outside the police station. They follow them where the medical is happening, waiting around, crossing around with policemen who are doing nothing to intervene. There is no hostility, but there is an aggressive air to this whole pursuit. Finally, the complaint, a DDR entry is registered. Till today, there has been no FIR. The police has, in some versions to people, said, these people had gone into some communally sensitive area.
Hmm.
First of all, under law, is there a bar? Has the police announced this was communally sensitive? Is there a section 144? Is there a curfew? That's, I mean, frankly, bullshit. It is the police making
And the
excuses.
journalists go all sorts of places to report the news. That's the job.
Absolutely. The second thing is that as far as this is going on, they have also later said that there has been a cross complaint from the other side. Now, we have no idea what this cross complaint is. I presume the cross complaint is that they have. I find it difficult to understand what the cross complaint.
Yeah, what could
possibly
it
in
be?
this-
That did they enter a house? Did they try to rob us? Did they try to break a window? Like, what could the complaint possibly be?
They said some of the women have complained. So there is a inclination of a certain sense. Yeah.
Hmm.
So there is, I think, an attempt to create a narrative here. So two men come on the street with cameras. Supposedly they commit the crime. In which case, why are you snatching their cameras and taking away their hard drives? Would it not be in the mob's interest to actually see what is there?
Hmm.
Why are they assaulting them? I mean, I'm just even going by the stupidity of the police's logic, but I'm pointing out that this is an absurdity. We haven't seen the police behave in this manner with journalism, in my experience anywhere, in such a context, with the gravity of charges which are cognizable offenses under the law. There is no choice with the police. An FIR had to be registered.
And has it been registered now, or are we still without an FIR?
No, there is no
No,
FIR.
okay. In
Okay.
fact, the DCP Northeast Delhi tweeted yesterday that some journalists were taking photographs and interviews in a commonly sensitive area, to which local people objected. Now look at the language. Local people did not object. Local people beat them up, harassed a girl, chased them. Where, as journalists like Hartosh said, we've been on the field, we're used to people objecting, we're used to people getting angry, asking us to leave, and we all know how to handle this. And in this case, one of the reporters was handling it in the way that he could, saying that, okay, you take my drive, you take the photographs that we've clicked. But this is beyond objection to the presence of journalists. This is harassment, it's physical abuse.
But I think the Delhi police has reached a level where their credibility is so shit, that, I mean, I don't know whether it has anything to do with how they've behaved in the last few months or years.
You must also take this fact that this is a police that is reporting directly to the LG and through the LG directly to Amit Shah himself.
Right.
And in most cases where serious questions of media freedom are involved, you would assume that the Home Minister is well aware of it and would be on the ball. In this case, that makes us more apprehensive rather than hopeful in any case of law being carried out in some senses.
Going by my past experience, I think the police is building up the narrative. Police
Exactly.
for the mob.
It's clear for the
Is
mob,
the
exactly.
police here is playing the advisory role, to this mob कि तुम counter complaint file कर दो.
Or hum,
Yeah.
इस किस्म के tweets. Like, what the hell does this even mean? I think
And
it's
I
a
mean, in
disgrace.
fact, one of the guys told our reporters also that they're also to be blamed. Why did they go to this area? I mean, why would they not go to this area? It's
No,
their
I
job
think,
to.
I think we've reached a stage where the Delhi police's credibility. I mean, the incident I wanted to talk about, I don't know if it's connected or not, but just a couple of days ago near my colony, there's a park. It's basically Somnath Park, named after Paramveer Chakra. So there was some guys who were walking around there, and these are not very affluent people, or not any retired generals or anything. They were just some people from nearby the colonies in RK-Puram, which are lower income. There's some bastis and all over there. And this cop said, "Yahan kyun tohl rahe ho? This is a public park. I mean, who says I can't tohlo here?"
That's what it's for.
Yeah. So this cop went and slapped that guy. That guy created such a shindy that how dare you touch me? Who the fuck do you think you are? And I was very impressed that he did not let it go. And he's not some bade baap ki bigdi aulad who has the privilege of being able to shout at a cop. This guy was like, but I said this is a sign of what people think of cops today. Because if you're a goon, then the best way to deal with you is also try to be a goon, right? Like, what do people have to lose then? Because, I mean, I don't recall someone bloody taking on a cop right there in a crowd gathering. And when the crowd gathered, there was an old woman there. She actually works in our colony as a maid. She's from, there's a Tamilian colony. She said, "मैं देखा था, तुमने मारा इसको पहले, तुमने क्यों मारा?" So the cop was on the defense. I was like, good man.
And in this case, the cops had arrived they were there for at least half an hour, at least what we were told. And they were just watching this happen. And now imagine what the residents there must be going through. These are journalists who can get beaten up and get no recourse. So imagine the Muslim residents who are staying there, who
what do
anyway,
they-
I mean, the cops, we know that from reporting of Delhi riots that cops joined in many cases. They pelted stones. They joined the Hindu mob.
We've seen those on video.
So imagine what residents going there are going through.
So what are your
Staying there
what are the future options, Hartosh? I mean, we can't force them to file an FIR, right? I mean,
Well, I
go
can't
to
be.
the
I mean,
court.
I think press bodies should at least come together and go to the police station and say, boss, this has happened. Because
Are they giving any reason for
you
why
can
they're not
ask-
registering the
You
FIR?
can ask the court to file the.
I don't know what
Court
do you
can
think
direct.
would be an appropriate forward?
Look, there are legal remedies. There's a whole procedure in some cases in terms of what can be done and not done. But, those procedures have been built for what seem like ordinary times. The expectation here is that this is a procedure that is loaded against the delivery of justice. Yeah?
Right.
And yes, so we will, as necessary, take steps to move whatever body that is required. The next court's a 156 to go to the High Court, ask for the FIR, pursue this where it goes. And that is one side of it. Of course, as far as you said, journalistic bodies, the unions, the press club, etc., have spoken. But it has taken police 36 hours. It has taken the Editors Guild 36 hours not to issue a statement. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how they ever meet a deadline, these editors, starting from Shekhar Gupta down, in a body like Editors Guild, and what they are there for. And the thing is, it is not our job to canvass or ask for support. We are doing journalistic duty. It is for others to see that this is part of a professional problem. It is not our problem or
Right.
one place.
yeah,
Exactly. Anyone
The
could.
second thing, what we have to do is, quite honestly, keep doing the work we are doing in as persistent and as stubborn a manner as honestly as possible to keep writing on what happened in Delhi and in every other place.
Yeah.
That is the only answer. That is what these guys want us to stop. This is what we are assaulting.
Exactly. And that is something that we shouldn't stop. So, in fact, I mean, some fantastic reports coming out of Caravan. And I think even we have decided, Raman sir said that for the next year, we are
Absolutely,
just going
you
to
guys
do
have done well on this.
every report, every FIR has to be taken to its logical conclusion. So, by the way,
And,
guys, sorry,
I just
Manisha.
wanted to add, in fact, Ayush was telling me that I was asking them, like, did they know that these guys are from Caravan? Did they read their report? Like, what was this? What explains the
I
anger?
told you they looked at the ID card. I think they were hostile to any media attention because, as I said, this whole anti-national media idea has been built by this government.
No, exactly. That's what Ayush told me. But then he also told me that he knows for sure that at least the Newslaundry Hindi stories have been circulated there. And they do feel a little, the crowd is hostile when they hear that they're from Newslaundry because they've read the Hindi stories and they feel that the stories are, they're not
But in
taking
this
into
case,
account.
I think what really played the trick, I mean, his
was
name.
the ID card, of course.
His
I
name,
think the Muslim,
Kashmiri,
the fact that he's a
And in fact,
Kashmiri Muslim.
I mean, Prabji told us that they didn't assault me and they
Yeah, I
didn't
think-
attack me. They hit him because the moment they saw his
I
ID.
think that's
So
pretty
that's my
clear.
point. They were aggressive. They were aggressive against the idea of reporters. They were
Exactly.
aggressive against, I think at least I'm presuming some of them would have, because there have been some reports that have got circulated even in Hindi, and there has been a persistence. They would have been aware that would have added to it. But yes, exactly what finally triggered out the violence and what followed is the very possibility of a Muslim reporter.
Yeah.
So they're stripping everything down to identity. You are not a journalist. You are nothing. If you are a Muslim, you are meant to be beaten. It doesn't matter who you are, what you are doing, and how dare you be here.
I really wonder how this is playing out in the forge, man. It would be interesting to see, or even on the police force. Maybe that's a story to be done.
Police force, I mean, there is I told you, I think the other day when Modi came into power, and my friend who's DG rank officer, his batchmate are telling in the group, WhatsApp group, now Modi is going to teach you guys lesson. हाँ जी कैसा लग रहा है आपको? So,
Yeah, I
so
think
he's
this
a DG. So they were just teasing him. He's a Muslim and DG
I think
rank.
this is going to permeate every profession, but yeah, like Hartosh said. Sorry, go ahead.
Hartosh, I just wanted to ask, so we've been talking about diversity in media, in politics, everywhere else. The whole idea of diversity is that marginalized communities who don't get their voices out, people from those communities come and they tell their own stories. So here you have a Muslim reporter is being beaten up because he's a Muslim. Now you have a Dalit reporter, he'll be beaten up. Similarly, so forth, so on and so forth. What does this mean for journalism in a country like this, where most of the communities are marginalized? So if you don't have people from those communities telling those stories, and it's people from other communities telling their stories, which is usually the upper caste Hindu communities. So what does that mean for the discourse in this country, for journalism in this country, and eventually obviously democracy in this country?
So look, part of this assault is directed at that. First of all, that discrepancy or that discrimination is usually, as you guys have documented, as we follow consistently in Caravan, is that in any case, through recruitment, hiring, everything, there is a huge disparity. The diversity of the country is not represented in any newsroom anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and when you have diversity, they are trying to beat it out of the system. I mean, literally, that is what is happening. We become such an odd newsroom because we have consciously paid attention to diversity. It is not out of design, but the fact is that the reporters were there. There was a Muslim, there is a Sikh. They make great light of the fact that Vinod, our executive editor, who's put together Caravan, is a Christian. I am, in their case, a Khalistani. All these things, in any case, go bothering them to that level that this is a persistent anti-Hindu plot, as if reportage in itself, and this is what Modi keeps saying, is anti-national, as if telling the truth and basing your work on actually all the foundations of journalism, which they can't question because we are putting it up for scrutiny day after day. They can take us to court. They can do various things. We've written about the Delhi police. The Delhi police every day issue strange rejoinders to our stories. When we ask them for versions, they are not willing to speak. The same police station where they have been charged with sexual assault had issued a press note clearing themselves, we are not guilty. I mean, the very idea of justice process in that, I wandered a little away from diversity, but yes, that is a huge issue that one, you rarely have diversity, and when you have diversity, there is this attempt to get it out of the system.
So do follow Caravan's coverage of this, which is amazing. I'd just like to thank all those NL Sena members who have contributed to our NL Sena project on the Delhi riots. We've already got, 5 reports out?
Four.
And we will have dozens more. We are just going to focus 2 reporters on this. So thank you for contributing. We have another NL Sena project on custodial deaths up. Do contribute to that. In fact, I think it's almost topped up. We've had 210. I think we've almost topped it up. Thank you. We'll have another Sena project. And also do contribute to Caravan. They are also a subscription-driven enterprise. Because like we say, when the public pays, the public is served. You can go to caravan.com. And it's .com, right? I haven't done a dot.
CaravanIndia.com, but that's okay. It's easy to find. They just Google and reach, and they'll get the subscription thing. It's right. The more organizations, people have to understand diversity outside is also important. If there are just 1 or 2 organizations doing this kind of work, they become that much more vulnerable.
Right.
So more organizations doing the work, 3 organizations doing the work on the Delhi violence are far better than only 1 organization doing it. We need to spread that support among various places which are doing the kind of work journalism needs.
Right. Okay, before we move on to the next subject, just want to mention, you were right, Manisha, I was wrong. Tirupati is not closed. So it is, despite 743 staff members testing COVID positive, Tirupati is not closed. And Y.V. Subba Reddy, who is the chairman of the TTD, which I'm guessing is the Tirupati...
The board.
Whatever.
Board.
He is... He's quoted
I think
as...
you were going to complete that without knowing. I was waiting to hear what you'll say.
Is it the same Subba Reddy who was the RBI governor?
I don't know. I don't think
I
so.
hope not, yeah.
No, I don't think so. So he says,
RBI
he's
is
been
not.
quoted as saying it's not just in Tirupati, cases on the rise all over Andhra. Our devotees believe that if they come and have darshan of Lord Balaji, it will all be fine. We respect their wishes.
Oh God.
Lord Balaji is there to take care of us. He will guide us through this crisis like he always did, unquote. So yeah, that's...
It
The
can't be
stuff
RBI.
that majority gets away with. Can you imagine
Can you
Maulana
imagine
saying this?
if Maulana had
Can you
said this?
imagine any mosque ka
No, even if
thing
this...
saying this?
what's the gentleman's name from Ram Janmabhoomi who's just been tested positive, the head priest?
Nitya Gopal Das.
Had Ritrik Gopal been maybe Abdul Hamid, he would have been accused of being a ISIS-trained
Yeah.
corona bomb. That he actually had got corona, then he got close to the PM he would be booked.
Yes.
And not just as a joke, he would be booked for assassination.
Yeah.
Because our police would go that far.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
the world we live in right now.
Yes.
Just
You
saying.
must remember, and it is spreading. I mean, obviously, we know this is what had happening with Muslims. When the Anandpur Sahib gathering had taken place, similar remarks were passed about the Sikh clergy, which is only fair. I think they deserve it for getting people gathered at such a point of time. But somehow, the vast majority of this country, the vast majority of religious leaders who happen to be Hindu are particularly immune and are allowed to get away with the kind of
Yeah.
nonsense nobody else will be allowed.
Yeah, exactly. I can't imagine anyone saying this and getting away with it without at least like dozens of primetime shows depicting him as like some sort of a devil or corona
Right.
bomb.
So we also now would just like to discuss what happened in Bangalore. I'll give you a bit of a context of that. Basically, 3 people were killed in police firing, and reports say 60 police personnel have been injured, and the video from that is there was a huge mob that gathered outside this Congress MLA's house. In fact, they set it on fire, I believe.
Oh.
And this Congress MLA also is Dalit, and his nephew had posted on Facebook something about the Prophet. I guess the post is deleted now, but it was something that was dedicated about the Prophet. Or I think it was. Does anyone know what the post, what the innuendo suggestion was?
It's the standard right-wing thing, how Prophet Muhammad,
Married a child. She was a child molester or
child
something.
molester and all that nonsense.
So it was along those lines. A huge crowd gathered, and of course, it led to violence. And now there have been some arrests made, and this has given a lot of ammunition to the Hindu right to say, and memes have gone around, that you can crack a joke on Shivaji, not Shivaji as in Shivji. You can crack a joke, nothing will happen. You crack a joke on Christianity, you will go to court, what happened to AIB, and you crack a joke on the Prophet, and this is what will happen. And I'm just going to go on to this one's article on this Yogendra's, which I found extremely shallow and not smart, which I said last week. And we've got a few mails this time that have disagreed with me, and we'll talk about that. But the whole thing about the Prophet insult and it becoming this violent, this thing. Have we normalized things to an extent where it was just okay to say that any insult on the Prophet will lead to a violent shitstorm, like what happened when the what was that French this thing? Yeah,
Charlie Hebdo.
Charlie Hebdo.
I mean, that was
bit more
extreme.
What happened at that time was there was an SP ka Samajwadi Party ka, there was some minister who had said that I'll offer 11 lakh for the head of someone who is a cartoonist, and that guy continued to be in power. Now I don't know whether what the coverage was, is there any metric to draw the equivalence? But when something like this happens and a sitting minister, I think he was a minister for state in UP for something or the other, that guy, and he says something like this, I mean, is the shitstorm there less than what it is if the Hindu right reacts the same way? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out, is that the case? Manisha, Mehraj, Raman, and after that we'll go to Hartosh.
I didn't really get your question.
The question is that at that time, a sitting minister, when he said that I'd take 11 lakhs or 51 lakhs of anyone who gets the head of whoever's made this cartoon, was the shitstorm of the media, which, calls out the Hindu right. Well, now, of course, they don't. But the few who do, like us, for example, is it a fair criticism that the shitstorm we create against someone like him is less or non-existent?
I think there was a lot of shitstorm on Bangalore. I think people rightfully...
No, now there is.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is historically.
Historically, I don't think so. Of course, there have been, you've had people bow down to these sentiments. For example, Jaipur Lit Fest itself that refused to, get him. Taslima Nasreen also famously suffered because of that. So there have been political fractions that have appeased it. But in the current context of majoritarianism in India, I don't think it's relevant so much to look back at the past, because today you cannot crack a joke on Krishna or Ram in similar vein. This was him basically saying that Prophet is a rapist. If you say that about Krishna or Ram, I think you would be in jail. In this case, the mob went crazy because he wasn't jailed in time. I'm against all jailing or whatever for derogatory posts, but I don't think it's true that you could say this about Hindu gods and get away. We had a case in Hindustan Times recently where this young reporter said something similar about Krishna. She said he's a eve teaser or a sexual harasser, and she was fired. And there was a huge social media backlash against her.
Yeah, that was
but
that
of
was
course,
unfortunate. But
traditionally, blasphemy laws have been stronger in Islam, and worldwide we've seen there's been more of a backlash.
Yeah, but that is in Islamic countries.
Yeah.
We are not in Islamic country. What I'm trying to say is, for example, like Shahid Siddiqui, when something like this happens, he often hedges his criticism. He says you should not say that about the Prophet, you should not say this about. But he is not seen as the Hindu equivalent, the Muslim equivalent of, say, a yogi. Whereas, like Yogi saying that I will not go for the groundbreaking of the masjid, which is shocking. And I don't see Shahid Siddiqui as an extreme voice, but some of his statements in the past, when someone has made fun of the Prophet or something, rather than side with a certain order, he does side with the outraged. But he's not called he's not considered a far right.
But
he's
okay,
still considered a liberal Muslim.
If we just look at India also, if we look at this same case and make it like someone saying something about Hindus, even the most progressive of Hindu voices will also say, but it's not okay to crack jokes like this
I'm
about
not so
gods.
Sure. I think
I don't think so.
Hartosh?
I don't think people will have that but. They'll say, oh, it's not fair, don't resort to violence, but do not, hurt sentiments of people.
I think, Abhinandan, let's look at the context. We moved from an age, whether I agreed with that or not, I am on the side of actually, my views on religious blasphemy of all sort is that really I could care less. I think people will be allowed to express But we were a society, because you negotiate, multicultural societies negotiate outside the law ways in which you coexist. Yeah, which is that, beef, I will not go out of my way to eat beef in a way that will provoke my neighbor. This is not today, it was always the case. I've grown up with that. I like my beef, but that doesn't mean I will do it in a way that is provocative. I will not speak about the Prophet because I know that it hurts sentiments in certain ways. Really, there is no necessity for me to do so. Yeah, this was part of where we were. Now, in the current climate, there is a hardening of positions across all religions, and obviously minorities are that much more insecure in their identity today. They will react, and it is not particular. We make so much of blasphemy in Islam. Let us pay attention to Indic traditions. What happened with the sacrilege of the Guru Granth Sahib in Punjab, mobs, violence, burning, we forget that.
Right.
You try cracking a joke, Abhinandan, on this program anywhere about Sikh figures, Gurus, you will see the backlash will be more virulent than anything you can imagine in Islam. Things are at that place, that nature, that is where we've reached as a society.
And you're saying that is a new, and you're saying that's a new thing. It wasn't like that earlier.
Well, people would not this need to go out publicly on Facebook and put out some great liberalism of yours by cursing the Prophet or making these issues. These are deliberate provocations. What I think under the law should be defensible are also part of our public climate where there are problems because of these. Yeah, but we've reached a point where these are not arguments about fate, debates of reason, of whether we should be allowed to say this or that. Those were meant to provoke. Now, that the provocation happened in that way is absolutely incorrect. It shouldn't happen that way. But we are in the current situation where we will get these flashpoints. It's easy to set them off. For example, we keep saying that there is something particular about blasphemy in Islam. What have we seen about cow slaughter in this country? Yeah, I mean, the idea of one piece of flesh, which is probably goat meat most of the time, leads to the lynching of a person. Where is the equivalent of that in any other religion? What happens, and this you saw it in Jamia student process, you see in Bangalore. So when you have Muslim mobs coming out on the streets where they should never have been in the first place, the police is very willing to act. 3 people die.
I think that is a big difference.
When is the last time you saw a Hindu mob being fired upon and 3 people killed when there is similar reactions happening? This huge discrimination when there are Hindu students, even Hindu liberal students protesting. The police acts in very different manners from they are from Jamia I think the way the majority areas.
I think the way the police responds,
a whole imbalance in how we are dealing with issues, and we are looking at this one particular community to hang all our problems from. The problem starts from the very top in terms of what ideologically has become embedded in this country in the name of whatever Hinduism is.
No, let Mehraj come in because he is the one voice who hasn't spoken, and so the whole idea of representation is let him also. Yeah, then Manisha, you can come in after that.
I agree completely with Hartosh. So this problem, this is one big aspect which comes across, which is that when the police is responding to say similarly Hindu mob, it's a very different story. 3 people have died. I mean, now the first aspect is that violence, it's not like justified in any way. If you go to the Quran, in Quran, in the traditions of the Prophet, there is absolutely no idea of blasphemy. The idea of blasphemy in Islam is only found in the fiqh, which is the legal jurisprudence, which is the legal opinions of the scholars. And the idea came from the Christian theology. So in the Quran narrates how not just Prophet Muhammad, but prophets before him were cursed, were the most vilest of words were used against them. And what was their response? What did Allah tell them to do? Say the kind word. Don't respond. Be patient. Same with the Prophet. He was called a magician and everything.
Religious texts is people interpret as they want to.
Exactly.
Which is why using that as the logical conclusion will never work.
Exactly. So this violence, I mean, there's no justification for it. There is no religious justification for it, political justification for it, no justification at all for it. That's one aspect. Second aspect is that Islamophobia in this country, like this anti-Muslim sentiment has built up so much that, like Hartosh said, these are unnecessary things. How does it matter to you what the Prophet did like 1500 years ago? Unless you criticize the theology, unless you criticize, say, what Islam says now and how it's affecting your story. So you are breaking up these things only to provoke people.
Post is only to provoke.
Yeah.
And to insult. I mean, more than provoke, it's to actively say that your God is...
And this is happening in a context
where...
So
there's a political messaging to this. It's not just a stand-up comic making a joke about
this is happening in a context where...
It's not even a joke. It's a crass thing.
Yeah. And it's happening in a context where just like a week ago, a temple was started being built on land which used to be a mosque, which was demolished, and in the aftermath of which, like, thousands of people were killed.
So basically,
So that insecurity Hartosh was talking about, it's a reaction of.
Also,
but
in
you know,
this
one
case,
comes, but
from
I
that
think one,
also.
I think one place where we kind of fall short of an honest discussion. I remember I got a lot of pushback for that article that I wrote supporting Bill Ma. You know, where he mentioned the whole thing of there is certain extreme right that what we even call progressive Muslims will tolerate, where that extreme right progressive Christians won't tolerate, for example, or they will not hold their punches when criticizing that. And he gave several examples in the US. I understand the context is very different, here is very different. But I sometimes am dissatisfied with political voices. And I get the context today. Like you said, it's just like 1 week after this whole groundling, which is a dog whistle ki boss ab hamara raj hai, jo karna hai kar lo, Mussalman ko ab Hindu. You know, Sadi Rathamra has been normalized. We shall discuss that also. But before this also, the push, because no other religion can come to the reform. For example, Hinduism caste system has to be reformed by Hindus. We have to speak up, because if others speak up, they'll be bashed up. Tum kaun hote ho hamare bolne wale, which is going to happen. Similarly, Islam also has to be reformed from within Islam. There, sometimes I think our political voices on that, even the ones we consider moderate, are not progressive enough, in my view. What do you think, Hartosh?
I think the most difficult thing is to stand up against the bigotry and the hatred and the fallacies and the narrowness of the communities and the religion you come from. It's far easier to sit on judgment on others and say this is wrong there or this is wrong there. And especially at times of stress, it is far more easy today to speak of, Bhindranwale was this or that. The number of people who would be able to do that in Punjab in the late 80s would have been very, very minimal.
Yeah.
It took courage. That is exactly what I mean, that there are certain comparisons. Did it exist in the past? What is the argument from the past that we are trying to draw today? We are in today's situation. The arguments from the past are always dangerous. Ayodhya is an argument from the past. Are we talking of the past from 20 years or 30 years ago? We are in today's situation. We should know what is happening today. In that context, yeah, I agree. People should be far harsher on their own community. But I do think the comparison, because you can't just pick out one facet and compare. On a reaction to a Shahid Siddiqui and a reaction to Adityanath can be comparable, because you have to see the context in which Adityanath has operated, what he has done, the history of a man of violence who has been responsible for many things. All those cases have been drawn by him.
It's not just about that one statement.
And also maybe the power
that
they
one
wield.
statement. You know what the import behind that statement coming from a figure of political power is. I mean, we are very far from the day. We will never have the day when a Shahid Siddiqui is going to be chief minister of this country and saying these things. What is the fear that I will have of a Shahid Siddiqui? And to say that these are comparable intellectual equivalents, what does it mean in the absence of the imbalance, in the presence of this imbalance of power?
Right.
No, and I think in this case, it's also, we should note that by the evening, there was a crowd of young Muslim men who formed a chain and protected a temple. So there's, in the same area, Bangalore, right? So there was immediately leaders from the community coming up and saying that, okay, please don't,
No, I think there are enough voices amongst us. I think it's political voices.
No, I'm talking about voices there, local in Bangalore, like local leaders.
Local
leaders came up and said, like, don't resort to violence. Local young Muslim boys came and formed a chain to protect a temple that was around there, so that, arsonists don't sort of attack the temple. So there's been, within the community in Bangalore, there's been a lot of calming of nerves, saying
I wonder
that, okay,
what
you can't.
Tejasvi Surya is going to use this for.
And I don't think a similar thing would have happened if it was Hindu. If this is involved Hindu leaders, you would have had the chief minister come there and rally and said ki.
That's true. Not today.
So,
Not today. Maybe 10 years ago, I would have said, but today, no Hindu leader will also come forward. You're right. Like, for example, look at everyone from Priyanka Gandhi to Rahul Gandhi is congratulating everyone for the building of the...
No, I'm saying that if this was a case of someone upsetting Hindu sentiments,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Hindu leaders would have come and exacerbated the situation.
That's what I'm saying. Even we are in a context where Rahul and Priyanka are congratulating whoever for the temple building, right?
No, there is, I think, let's face it, there is an institutionalized violence against Muslims. Not minorities, Muslims. Specifically. This is happening. So the in the name of nationalism, and I think this religious identities, have also, this majoritarian nationalism is includes all the religions except Muslims.
Hmm.
So this is what is happening. I think this is the
And also what you said about reform, like within Islamic tradition all over the world, not just in India, there are happening right now, and there have been since the beginning so many movements, so many scholarly sort of maktab, the schools, which have tried to like reinterpret the traditions and the Quran, and the extremism that has seeped in over the last like 70-80 years, rid it of it. I mean, ISIS, for example, it was defeated by the Muslims. The forces that are railing against, say, Taliban and the other extremists, they're Muslims themselves. And there are, like, say, there's the Farahi school, there's I forgot the name of the Egyptian school, that are protesting against it, that are going back against this
There's a
current of
pushback.
extremism. So that is happening within the community.
Also, I mean, triple talaq in India, it was Muslim women who went and petitioned.
Not just Muslim women, Muslim scholars also.
Yeah.
I mean, because they pointed out how this was
I
against
guess
although
in
I
the
think
media
it's a-
also
it's
we
a-
need to...
It's a longer discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, I do
It's
believe
not that
it.
simplistic, I get
No,
where you're
also I think
also-
I mean, like most other things, it boils down to money. I think there is something to be said that Saudi is so rich. I think if the economic balance was different, maybe the reform voices would have been louder than some of the Wahhabi voices, for example. It could have been. I think there's a huge economic reason, but that's a much
And the
bigger
Saudi
decision.
project, for example, the Wahhabi project, it's not a religious project, it's a political project.
Right, exactly, and economics has a lot to do with it.
Exactly.
So I think that's a little more complicated. But I'll just move on to the next thing that we'll discuss, which is going to be Kamala Harris. Actually, I want to briefly discuss her because it has left many of the Trump Modi bhakts confused in America.
No,
Ab kya
but
kare?
I'm seeing, I mean, I will dare not read it, but I'm seeing a lot of these pieces. One by Jaggi that says that, dear Indians, Kamala Harris is not Indian. She's
One by
left.
that Professor
So why
Paranj
is the
Patel.
Indian right so upset
I'll
with
tell
her?
you.
Can you
In
please
fact, yes,
explain?
yes. Because of
I haven't followed
you
this.
have to see some of her statements about Kashmir in the recent past. But before I do that, I just had a couple of emails to read. And before the emails, I'm going to tell you guys the NL Sena project, which is almost topped up now. I think 210. Do please top it up. It's on, triggered by the P. Jairaj and his son Benix's brutal murder in Tamil Nadu, sorry, before I'm again chastised for mispronouncing this. So we are going to be doing a report on such custodial deaths, not just from Tamil Nadu, but from other parts of the country as well. And this has an important political aspect. It is a human story as well, and it is a political story as well. So do go to newslaundry.com, go to the NL Sena page, go to the subscribe button, and do contribute to the Sena. And by the way, we have some fantastic merchandise for Sena members. So Sena members will be sent that merchandise. Do check out our social media handles. We will be unveiling those products very soon. So just a couple of emails and then we will move on to this Kamala Harris thing. This is from Mahendra. He says, DNL team, I want to see more interviews of the I agree variety. Anything coming soon? Can you do an I agree with Yogi Aditya? I'd love to, Mahendra. I doubt Yogi ji will give me an interview, but we shall continue to try. The I agree format only works when I'm actually with the person. The physical proximity is very important of the I agree format. But we'll try to do some more interviews. But this COVID lockdown, this social distancing has really shafted the interview process, because interview has a lot to do with like the kind of dynamic you have physically. Then Mithila says, hi peeps, I've been following up on the topic of safetyism a lot more, and there have been several upgrades in my understanding of the same since I mailed you guys last Hafta. I was more on the snowflake. She's put this in inverted commas. No intention of demeaning anyone. I was more on the snowflake side of the narrative before and supported safetyism solely because I thought it was a way to prevent foreseeable attacks on mental health and emotional security. But now, after obsessing over this stuff for a week and reading all sorts of narratives, I think we as a society will be better off without safetyism. While I think mental health and emotional security must be prioritized in this lonely and constantly expanding world, one must also consider that subcultures like safetyism are a threat to freedom of expression in major life-altering ways. I have a Brahmastra kind of example to prove this, and I hope I cause a lot of listeners to rethink their view on this. So here it goes. Imagine the predicament we'll be if safetyism becomes prevalent and legit, and our honorable Prime Minister could opt out of an unbiased interview because by saying he doesn't feel safe around Ravish or Karan, and we all would have to live with it.
I think that is what he feels though.
There is a lot of negative consequences to safetyism as opposed to some constructive changes, which basically means that there are far more exceptions in it for them to be considered exceptions. And there is a very narrow space, or rather no space at all, for modifications. So I am with Abhinandan on this one, and I take back calling his views basic. In the last Hafta, a person named Sahil said a lot of things which were twisted and somewhat out of context. Yet I'd find it interesting and address all that stuff in a debate with him or with anyone whose views resonate with his. Best, Mithila. Great. So our wonderful producer Aditya will just make a note, Mithila. And if you can get Mithila and Sahil on an NL versus NL, because the whole idea of NL versus NL debates is our subscribers can debate with each other so that we can once again teach news professionals as news consumers that this is what a debate is. We can both be, friendly and yet disagree on something and debate. And then this other email is from Rahul Pradhan. I'm a subscriber for the last few years and absolutely look forward to the weekly Hafta. I usually listen to the Hafta and other Newslaundry podcasts when I'm running, walking. So I believe you have contributed to my health. Arey vaah, thank you. That means a lot because I definitely think everyone should exercise. Each panel member on the Hafta brings in a different perspective to discussions, and there have been times that I have changed my opinion about a topic midway in between Hafta. I enjoy listening to Anand Vardhan the most. While I may not agree with his view, he brings a feeling of rationality and an almost professor-like quality when airing his opinions. I'm a big fan of the other side. By that, I mean I'm always keen to understand the other side of any discussion.
That's really nice.
Yeah, that's very rare.
It's a very great quality. We need more like you.
And then Rahul goes on to say, for this very reason, I subscribe to two news sites, in my opinion, are far from each other's philosophy as chalk and cheese. That is Newslaundry and Swaraj. Independent media is absolutely critical to the well-being of any democracy, and I laud Newslaundry for sticking to this principle. When the public pays, the public is served. I will always support independent media, and I hope that you continue to churn out the amazing reports, videos that I'm so fond of. All the best to Newslaundry. Regards, Rahul Pradhan. Thank you, Rahul. I just had one little thing. I don't mean to be petty, and I really value your subscription. And, I myself have been a huge enthusiast of Swaraj when it was launched. In fact, we had the founder on a Hafta when they had just launched, saying this is such a good idea to relaunch it. But I don't think Newslaundry and Swaraj are the same, are different sides of the same coin. Swaraj started off with promise, and many of the people there have told me how they have been disillusioned with what it has become. So while ideologically we may be different, I still do hope that a news platform gives accurate news. Opinion can be anything. And in the last few months, in fact, I don't know whether we have carried pieces on it.
We have.
Swaraj has put out 3 outright fake news. Like one is that in the word Chapak, the Muslim character was changed to Hindu character. Then they put out some other fake news. So I'm not sure they spend money well. They don't really care about the accuracy of the reporting. While we definitely would like a wide variety of opinions, I don't think facts should be compromised based on your ideology. So on that, I think Swaraj has not lived up to the promise that it started off with, which is why I think while there is such a huge Hindu following in the country, their journalism is not something I respect anymore. While Jaggi used to be a friend, I think they've completely, and I think this is the thing of the Hindu right, unless you go full retard, you will not be accepted. And that's what they've done.
Their news are more into the, campaign mode.
Yeah, it's they don't do news anymore.
They don't news.
So anyway, Rahul, that's fine. You should spend your money as you deem fit. But as a news professional, I just thought I should just mention this.
In fact, I mean, if you want conservative voices, I think mainstream media and outlets have better conservative voices on issues than Swaraj.
But then that doesn't
Swaraj
defeat
doesn't
the model.
even have, it doesn't even have legitimate conservative voices on it.
But you have to defeat the model. I do think if we are saying pay to keep news free, we should support independent media outfits no matter where they are from. But they should at least give accurate news. That's the only thing. So, okay, let's just move on. Quickly, I'll just go on to who is Kamala Harris. Well, she is a second-generation American. Her mother was Tamil and her father was Jamaican. Apparently, her mother brought her up as a single parent. And the LA Times wrote in October 2019 that she seldom delves into her Indian heritage, reflecting a broader reticence to share personal stories beyond a handful of well-worn anecdotes. And if you see some of her videos that have come up now, it's all about her mother. My mother was a woman of color. So while she's talking a lot about her mother who was Indian, she's not talking about that much about her father who is Jamaican. And many of from the Hindu right in India, like Jaggi, like Manisha said, are warning Indians from celebrating her because she cares about
human rights,
Kashmiri lives and all that things which we don't like to care about. So that's the context. So Hartosh has to leave. He's with us for only another 10-15 minutes. Hartosh, what do you make of her from a India point of view, and how do you think, will this confuse the Trump Modi lovers in NRI in New Jersey, etc.?
No. I mean, so there is a certain degree of split personality in a lot of NRIs already. There are a lot of people who have no problems reconciling their support for Democrats with Modi in India. I mean, it's a mental balance that's difficult to figure out, but it is very common in the US, basically. In that context, there is also strong right-wing support among the NRIs for Trump and what is happening. Those people will now increasingly, for them now, Indian origin is meaningless. Their definition of what Indian is becoming defined by what is Hindutva's interest. So in that sense, they already will not see Kamala Harris as Indian. This whole one, this pride on people being of Indian origin, which sort of misplaced as it is, now has been restricted only to the right kind of Indian. So in that sense, for a lot of them, Kamala Harris will be one of those people who are using an Indian identity for diversity but are actually acting against Indian interests because, of course, India doesn't care about human rights.
Panel, your views on this? And before we move on, I know we have a very large number of NRI subscribers. And I've met many of you guys when I've come for the conferences to New York and Boston. So it'd be great if some of you send us pieces that we can carry on this because, I'm sure you guys would have an opinion on this. You guys discuss the Hindu right and its representation there in the US. While she talks a lot more about her mother than her father, yet the identity that is politically significant for the Democrats is her father's ancestry and not her mother's, because that is a bigger vote. But Mehraj, what do you make of Kamala Harris?
I mean, as a person, as a leader, I mean, she has just made history, right? So to reduce her to this base identity, I mean, this is the problem with identity politics. To reduce her, an accomplished woman like her who has just made history, to whether she is Indian or not, is like really doing a disservice
or not.
and doing disservice to her. But that said, the discussion should be about what she brings to the table. And what she brings to the table is her record as Attorney General of California, as a senator. And from what I have read, obviously I can only say from what I have read, her record in California is atrocious. I mean, she went after black families, locked them up. She even mulled a proposal to lock parents up if their children skipped school. She locked up people for doing like soft drugs, like marijuana and stuff, while she was doing the drugs herself. And that was like, she was taken to cleaners during one of the primary debates by Tulsi Gabbard for that. So what does she bring to the table? And she is like a fervent supporter of the Zionists, the Israelis and everybody else. She's spoken something about Kashmir, but she hasn't spoken something about that. Her healthcare plan, the initial healthcare plan, she supported the Bernie Sanders healthcare plan, and then she moved away from that. Her support for the Wall Street. Those are the things that materially affect you, not just in America. I mean, because, for good or for bad, what happens there affects all of us. Sure. So that is the things you should be concentrating on and debating.
Yeah, in fact, that's what a lot of the
another
commentary...
aspect is because, from what I have seen of Biden, from what I have read, it doesn't look like even if he becomes president, he'll survive the entire term. And not physically, his mental,
he seems a bit
equity
loopy.
is like really, really gone. And this...
But that hasn't stopped Trump.
Yes. No, but he's really seems like he has some issues, he's slowed or whatever. And this person will really be like running the administration.
So, in fact, some of the commentary did say that she was brought on to appease the center and center-right vote base. And she's not from the lefter fraction of the Democratic Party. So, her job is actually to appeal to the slightly right or center-right voices. But yeah, I agree, like at least for the Democrats, Joe Biden has just been so uninspiring. So maybe Kamala Harris will bring some vigor into their campaign for whatever
energy.
It's worth.
Because Democrats
and also the fact that in case Biden wins, she could be the next presidential candidate.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what.
And this reflects a change in politics, in America, that an Indian born, origin, Indian origin.
Hartosh, any more comments on this? And then you can give us your recommendations and carry on. I know you have a busy day ahead of you.
Sure. No. So my point was simple. Obviously, from an American point of view, how we analyze Kamala Harris is very different. What I said is how this whole Indian origin bandwagon looks at Kamala Harris. That is shifted considerably from the past in terms of how we would look at people with any element of Indian origin in them. Of course, as a candidate, I think yes, in the totality of her record, you will find problems, but you must look at the kind of space that American politics now occupies. In that, she's considerably a more acceptable character than almost anybody else in the race as a major figure. And I think that is what we have to live with in today's world. Unfortunately, there are no clear, absolute choices available. And she does represent a certain kind of diversity, a worldview which is more palpable than even Biden's in some sense.
Right. And before you carry on, can you give us your recommendations for the week?
Look, I have one or two, three recommendations, which is the one magazine I would recommend. So take it away from politics to a different domain is that I think some of the best detailed long-form writing in science, which looks at both mathematics, biology, recent developments, is a magazine called Quanta. And I would recommend that very, very strongly. It is a brilliant place. It's the one place where I've seen advances in mathematics happening right now, dealt in long essays, done in a way that is comprehensible from biology to physics. I think it's a very admirable piece of journalism, so I recommend that strongly. Two very different pieces, just journalistically, which I will mention. One is our own reporters. She had done it in July, and their action has been taken, tying up with some of the themes, which was to do with the 8-year or 9-year-old Dalit girl who was charged with sacrilege of the Guru Granth Sahib in Punjab. This was in July by Jatinder Kaur, and then the case has been withdrawn after Jatinder reported on her. But this is the point we've got with religion, where an 8 or 9-year-old claiming Granth Sahib on some basis of some hazy video where a corner of a little piece may have been torn was actually charged under sacrilege. An FIR was filed on an 8-year, 9-year-old girl. One recent piece I read in Wire by Santoshi Markham, which is she's gone from Bastar, if I'm not mistaken, of growing up in and going to school in an RK mission, Ramakrishna mission school. How that has cut her off from the roots, the imperialism of Hindi, the denigration of the culture of the people who were studying there, from Malvis to Bonds to various other Adivasi communities, the proselytizing sense, the clear realization of how much damage this kind of Hindi imperialism has done to huge, vast communities. They own themselves number in 15 to 20 million in this country. It's not a small population. They don't have a state. They have a language of their own which is being killed because of these kinds of things. This has gone for decades, and that piece is particularly moving in how she writes about her own experience of going back and actually telling her own parents that their culture is backward, we represent Rakshasas, because this is what she learned at school.
Okay, thanks Hartosh. Have a good week. Good luck with your reporters, and continue your fantastic reportage. Those of our subscribers who want to support independent media, may I also recommend Caravan magazine. Do check it out. And see you next time. And now for this appearance, you will be paid. So it's not in retrospective. It's not an SC judgment. Thanks Hartosh. Bye. And I repeat, we have a really cool Sabki Dhulai soap set, which is a jasmine soap, which is white, an orange soap, which is as close to saffron as a soap gets, and we have a green soap. I think it's a lemongrass or a neem soap. So it's a beautiful package with the Sabki Dhulai soap set, only for our guests and subscribers for the month of Independence Month. And we have a lot of other really cool merch coming out, and you shall see it on our Insta and our social media picture accounts handles. So yeah, but I repeat, it is only going to be available to subscribers, and we shall tell you how it will be available. Do check out our social media handles for that. Now, Manisha, you wanted to talk about daughters have equal rights of the Hindu property.
I didn't want to talk about it. Actually, I was just happy that that's happened.
Oh, I see.
Nothing to talk
So
about.
there's
It's a
nothing-
great,
there's
great
nothing.
progressive judgment,
I see.
and to apply it retrospectively is excellent. All women claim your land back.
Right. Claim it back. And if someone wants to leave me some land, feel free, because I don't own any land or home or asset. The only assets I have are Newslaundry shares, which
You're such a
are
bad
not-
Punjabi. All Punjabis I know are involved in a court case on land with fighting with family.
No, I wish I had
Come
my
on,
way,
I'm a
but
Punjabi. I'm not.
All I know are involved in, and 20 years ki legal battle with your family over this land, that land. So you guys
Actually,
are
thing is,
clearly really not.
I think all
not
my
doing justice to
chachas
your
went,
community.
like all good Punjabis, went to either Toronto or then Birmingham. So all my chachas are there. My dad joined the army, and then he didn't. So a property in Batala was given to some Sai Baba trust or something or the other. I have
How
no-
sad.
So I have no idea. So I have no property. So please make Newslaundry valuable, so I have a home to buy when I'm retired and I'm not living on rent. So, but I'd like to talk about Pranab Mukherjee's condition and journalists wanting to break news even while they pelo gyan about other stuff.
Are you being coy? It's not journalists, it's just Rajdeep.
Okay, we'll come to that. And of course, we have to discuss the period leave bit.
Yeah. Can discuss that.
Before that, there is this email from Karthik Punuru. Hi, Nell team. I've been a long time subscriber since 2015 and have always loved your work, especially Hafta has had a huge impact on my thought process after being a regular listener over a period of time. So much so that I instinctively picture what Abhinandan or Manisha would say when I react to and make sense of any contemporary issue. I thought of writing to you guys many times in the past about topics that caught my interest, but the letters that you read in Hafta are of such high quality that I felt insecure to write to you guys. Hey, come on, Karthik, surely not. I'm currently writing after listening to episode 288 where Abhinandan compares the public reaction in 1992 versus 2020 and used it as a yardstick to judge how far we've come or gone in terms of being secular nation. While I generally agree with most of the points the panel discussed and share the fear of danger posed by communal politics on the current dispensation, I would like to draw an important distinction that in 1992 people were reacting on the act of destruction of a masjid, while in 2020 it's the construction of a Ram temple. I don't think we can draw any broad conclusion based on the public celebration. My limited point is, given it's been 30 years since the demolition, and as Abhinandan rightly pointed out, it's totally reasonable for general Hindu population to wish for a mandir at the birthplace of Ram. I don't think a vast majority of people are celebrating Hindu assertion nor necessarily condoning it when they cheerfully watch the Bhumi Puja. I feel drawing such premature conclusions may be dangerous because if that becomes a general consensus, no opposition party will seriously attempt to challenge the communalization of discourse in India. It's too early for anybody to concede any defeat over secularism when Modi himself often couches his controversial political decisions in a liberal idiom. For example, banning triple talaq as addressing women's rights issue, abrogation of Article 370 as ensuring equal rights for J&K citizens, etc. Also, I'd like to know the panel's view how much the BJP's increased support from 90% vote share to 38% vote share at national level between 2009 and 2019 is because of voters' rightward ideological shift versus Modi's personality as a self-made leader. I'd guess almost all of his incremental share is Modi's vote and not really BJP's, okay? Also, the recent NRC CAA nationwide protest indicates India hasn't really rejected secularism. The real crisis I feel is the dearth of political talent in parties claiming to be secular. BJP, for all its pitfalls, is meritocratic, where a Narendra Modi can raise the ranks to become a supreme leader. As Prashant Kishore put in the recent interview to Karan Thapar, Modi developed his phenomenal political skills over 45 years, 15 as a pracharak and 15 as a grassroots organization man and 15 as a CM of a large state. It gives him a unique and massive advantage. Finally, I feel you should have got Anand Vardhan on this episode when you discussed an issue as historic as a Ram temple to provide a counter narrative. Also, I wonder how the other Anand, which is Ranganathan, reacted to the Ram temple event. As a long-time subscriber, I remember he used to often say on Hafta, the real justice would be to rebuild a mosque at the disputed site brick by brick.
Yeah, he said that, and I remember Madhu and I saying, "What? No,
Yeah.
like what?"
Surely he isn't saying those things when he's on Arnab's show these days, Karthik. Karthik, you're right. He definitely is not probably saying that these days. I don't know. I haven't watched him. But just a couple of things. I agree with you on the meritocracy of the BJP as compared to others. I don't think there is any two ways on that. But I think it is, I mean, I get what you're saying that people are celebrating today because they see a Ram temple and they are not necessarily celebrating the destruction of the Babri Masjid. But I think the kind of things Yogi is saying, the kind of things Modi says, the dog whistles, and also it is telling for news studios because, you know, as opposed to 7 years ago where I thought news did not have that much of an impact on how people think, now because of technology and the penetration of internet and broadcast channels, it does have an impact. I think, I mean, the same reason that it's important to demolish those statues, you know, because the news narrative has kept certain social issues alive because they're relevant, because certain communities are still being treated the way they are. In fact, like the murder of George Floyd that set off this whole chain of events, day before the security cam was released, whatever the cam, you know, what the
footage
was released. It again became a lead story because news has to give context. They can't say, अच्छा वो पुरानी हो गई, अच्छा अब बाबरी मस्जिद destruction नहीं है, अब सिर्फ हम construction को celebrate कर रहे हैं. The two are not connected. Of course they're connected. And if news does not do that, and I think that is very, very problematic.
In fact, what on Z News, Sudhir Chaudhary said that बहुत पावन अफसर and all that, and सालों साल पहले जो मंदिर को गिरा के मस्जिद बनाया वहाँ पे अब मंदिर बन गया. So he completely erased कि बीच में
और कुछ हुआ था.
There was something else also that happened in the middle.
But what I do agree with you, Karthik, is that I think this whole thing that secularism has been defeated and all that I
Yeah, it's
completely
too
agree with
premature
you.
to say that.
Which is why I completely disagreed with Yogendra Yadav's piece, which I called shallow, and someone has actually even questioned that. I'll talk about that as well.
But just on one thing, I mean, whether secularism has been defeated or not, these are lofty things to say. But change is these little shifting of ground. This little bit of everyone saying, okay, theek hai, ho gaya demolished, now move on, forget about it. Now you say Jai Shri Ram. I mean, these are the chota things that keep happening that then lead to a point where you suddenly find yourself in a country that doesn't hold.
And I also,
it doesn't
Modi, fine.
respect secularism.
45 years of going through a rigorous training and all. But I will not buy, a leader who is rising in his career through rhetorics, through all kind of propaganda, through false news, fake news. So I don't know.
And also, like Manisha said, it doesn't happen overnight. Like take the Babri Masjid, for example. The destruction didn't happen in 1992. The whole thing started in 1949 when the idols were smuggled in, like the Supreme Court said. From there to what Nehru did, what Govind Vallabh, what was his name? The first Home Minister. The Chief Minister of Govind Vallabh Pant, the Chief Minister of UP at the time. What he did. Then what the bureaucracy did. what the courts did. Then what Indira Gandhi did. Rajiv Gandhi did. Narasimha Rao did. So this was a whole process. It didn't happen overnight. From the smuggling of the idols to the opening of the locks to the destruction and to the building of the round temple. And it ran parallel to another project which I have been saying again and again was this experiment of making India into a democratic country, a secular democratic republic. That experiment went parallel, and as it degenerated, that experiment started to fail. This happened, this pace quickened. Modi only sort of completed a project that had started right then. So these changes
like we had
don't
said in the
happen all
past
at once.
Hafta also that, of course, there's no other way but reconciliation in this because so much had happened. But what happened on 5th of August was triumphalism. It was one religion saying that,
And
this is how it's going to be.
And these,
it wasn't hand extended to sort of sort out an issue.
Yeah.
So we tend to see these things as like linear lines, linear narratives. There are other things.
Exactly.
Nehru, this great champion of secularism, recently A.G. Noorani, the historian, he unearthed these letters between Nehru and Sheikh Abdullah about the accession of Kashmir and all that. One point he found was the person they sent to persuade the Maharaja Hari Singh to accede to India was the RSS chief at the time, Golwalkar.
Right.
And his argument to the king was not political or secular or anything. He said, you are Hindu, we are Hindu, you'll be more safe with us.
Although on that, I think politicians use any trick in the trade to go.
Yes.
Like, for example, even Abe Lincoln, for him to, I was about to say cancel slavery. I've internalized the word cancel. Abolish slavery was not... all the arguments he used to sway the vote in his favor were not all moral arguments. There were some economic, some strategic, some give and take. But yeah, as far as the project is concerned, Karthik, I think I would not draw the two separately. I think there is a continuum, but I do get a lot of people who today, why people like Rohit Sardana, Sadhvi Rithambara. Now, I understand I joined Newsrooms when I was very young, but I'm sure maybe Rohit Sardana 10, 15 years younger than me, but if he is a primetime journalist, he should have seen or read the magazines for the company that he works for. Sadhvi Rithambara is a horrendous excuse for a religious person, let alone for a human being. She was seen as one of the most virulent and hateful voices. You go to YouTube and do Sadhvi Rithambara. Hear her speeches. She was sitting in his studio, peloing yarn about this Pavan Avsar. So, you can say that people don't know, they are just happy that, someone who they really respect and their Lord's temple isn't made. But who is the person who is representing that happiness? And that is dangerous. One can say ki bhai, maybe, maybe there is some, I don't know, let's say Guru Nanak ji ka koi agar build ho raha hai, Gurdwara, they say, haan, theek hai, very good. But imagine if studios had Bhindra wale telling us why it's a wonderful thing. See, they are not different. So
merchants of hatred.
So that who are the carriers of this message? And that is where I think news has completely failed. And I genuinely think people like Sardana, I'm bigoted that they may be, they're actually such buffoons, they don't even know who she is. They probably have not read anything or...
क्या हुआ था बताइए ना उस दिन.
This is like Raman sir said,
कैसे
how
लोग
narratives
जोश में आ
work.
गए.
Take for example Modi. For the last, even the so-called liberal and secular journalists have celebrated the rise of Modi as the strength of Indian democracy.
Yeah.
There was this man who was a chai wala who rose up. it's a failure of Indian democracy. The whole idea of democratic institutions is to prevent a person like this. And who is this person? He is the person who organized the Rath Yatra for Advani. Then he came to Gujarat. He oversaw a massacre. He should not have been chief minister after that, but
because
he was.
Democracy is a liberal principle, and if there's no continuity in that, then what do you
Yes,
celebrate?
the institutions are supposed to be built to prevent such a person. If he still became the prime minister of the country, that means those institutions failed. That democratic ideal failed. It's not a strength of democracy, it's its weakness, it's its failure.
And it's a matter of fact when I think when the 2002 massacre happened, Vajpayee wanted him to take the moral responsibility and
that famous press conference.
And
where he was-
Advani said no.
Advani
he's
said
so
no.
nervously he's sitting next to Atalji.
And look what Advani got for defending.
अच्छा से ला दिया तूने मेरे प्यार का. And Advani, of course,
Advani is a super tragic character,
his-
but maybe not really tragic.
I don't think he's
he
tragic.
He did
See, I
have
think-
his power.
I think this is what happens when you get old, because you're physically so obviously weak and you're at the fag end, then one kind of has sympathy for you, which is fair enough. I think human nature, we shouldn't lose the humanity in us. But I think one can say that he's too old to hate. But I would not give a free pass for what that person did when he was at his prime.
Yes.
I think that is what makes a big difference in
And
life.
what he did, we are still reaping the consequences of that.
Exactly. So, anyway, Karthik, thank you for that email. Before we move on to the whole period live thing that Zomato has kicked off, two brief bits of news. Rahat Indori died. He is a poet and a lyricist. And the only reason I really bring this up, we're not going to, there's not that much to discuss, but he's done a lot of mushairas, on YouTube. You can see much of his poetry is very inspiring.
And one of his lines really came back during the protest season. Kisi ke baap ka Hindustan
Insan
nahi
nahi
hai.
hai. Haan, he says,
That really became a rallying cry for a lot of protesters.
in fact, this is what it sounds like.
जो आज साहिब मसनद है कल नहीं होंगे, किराएदार हैं, जाती मकान थोड़ी है, सभी का खून है शामिल, यहाँ की मिट्टी में किसी के बाप का हिंदुस्तान थोड़ी है.
So he's done that. He's written a very nice song for a film called Meenakshi by M.F. Hussain, Ye Rishta Kya Kehlata Hai.
Oh, he wrote that.
He wrote that
it.
song. Yeah.
That's a
But-
nice song.
Yeah.
Very nice.
But Aaj Tak, when he died, what was playing on television screen was Mamta Kulkarni dancing. Koi jaye to le aaye, meri lakh duaएं पाए, मैं तो पिया की गली जिया भूल आई रे. And then this, the choreographer, ding, ding, ding. I was like, fuck man, this guy has done, I don't know how much good work in his life. He's dead. And you're showing me Mamta Kulkarni dancing to one of the real most tucha songs he's written. Like, what the fuck?
The cultural aspiration of the Indian middle class, I suppose.
I was like,
Mamta Kulkarni ke gaane ko lyrics diye.
and they showed the last, like she does this, he jumps. And because most of these choreographers have like ripped off Paula Abdul or something. Now Paula Abdul is very fit, yeah. Like she'll jump and she lands with the split. Now clearly Mamta Kulkarni is not fit enough to do a split. She can just about go like 70 degrees. That's as far as the flexibility. So she goes there and this is very awkward, graceless. She sits and then it cuts. So I'm like, Rahat Indori. I mean, why would you do this to the guy, man?
And songs of Meenakshi, all songs are good.
I don't know if he's written all, but this one he definitely has
Okay.
written. Ye Rishta Kya Kehlata Hai. I mean, you could have played some of his musharas,
Yeah,
but
but both they'll never, na? That plays against the current mood.
okay. So now, what did Zomato do?
So Zomato has instituted a 10-day period leave for women, which sparked off a lot of controversy on Twitter, and especially by women. I haven't seen so many women disagree with women in a long time on Twitter. Leading...
Just pointing out, I know you would disagree with me and I may get some other mail for trying to be snarky. I'm not being snarky. I'm saying if one wants to be in the super woke age of gender fluidity, period leave for all menstruating people.
Yes, I only told you this. You're throwing back my...
Obviously.
He's not woke, guys. Just don't be... ये मैंने कल ही explain किया था Abhinandan को. Now he's throwing it back at me.
No, I
Like,
was just saying, I was like,
this,
all that.
this is a classic example of mansplaining, yeah? My God, she's such a mansplainer.
I was just telling you.
मेरी चीज लेके मुझे let me tell you in case you've forgotten.
And this is not even mansplaining. This is intellectual property theft.
Yeah. What is that? I love that New Yorker cartoon where this man and women are sitting on a date, and the man says, the man says, "Let me interrupt your expertise with my confidence."
Yeah, I've seen that. That's really
So that's classic. But anyway, yeah, so that got a lot of people upset. And I think Barkha led the charge on this, and she got quite attacked also for it. She said that, this is biological determinism, and you can't, we don't want our period to come in the way of doing our work. And
I've
we want
been
to cover
Kargil.
wars, and we want to join infantry. And I think it's bullshit. Firstly, I think it's a private company. So I think there would have been some, decision making behind this. They would have looked at this as, I don't think private companies just want to be woke and just institute rules like this. And it's 10 days. It doesn't even take into account the fact that women menstruate every month. What about the other 2 months? Suddenly your pain is magically supposed to disappear. But anyway, it's just 10 days. I think it's great. Because I think there hasn't been enough research in this to really know the extent of pain and the percentage of women that go through debilitating pain during their period. I suspect there may be a lot of women, but we're just not told. And I think a lot of women in the workforce are probably already taking leave, but not saying that it's for period. It's probably, I'm upset, or my stomach upset or whatever. So I think there should be enough research into this to really know. I know that a lot of women suffer, it's not just cramps for a lot of women. It's very debilitating, coupled with other symptoms like vomiting also at times. In fact, one of the things that I read yesterday was that Bihar instituted this in 1992 with Lalu Yadav, giving 2-period leave to women in government services. So I think it's super progressive. I don't think people will misuse it. And those who misuse it will find many other ways to misuse it.
No, I don't think it's about misusing leave.
And I think that for something that is not our fault, it's a biological thing that women go through every month. And also the pain factor, looking at it is, if it can be as debilitating it can be, I think giving 1 day leave a month is really okay. And it's actually deserved.
It is quite progressive. But
Yeah.
Now
as a reporter, the thought that comes to my mind, I always look at, all these multinationals with suspicion. How many female
employees do
Do they have?
How much will it actually
How
impact
many
them?
do they have? So,
And in
but I
leadership
find it
positions
absolutely
also.
progressive. This is
Yeah,
something which is...
Because I
No,
honestly
it's
think there should be
progressive.
more research on this also.
I think there is a progressive element. The whole shitstorm that also this kicked up was that, Barkha said, I've been to Kargil, we don't need this, thank you, this is... So
She may not need it, but maybe her reporters,
Yeah, but
you don't know how
I
other
think there was a
women-
lot of posturing happening. And I think that's a problem with social media. There's a lot of posturing that happens on social media, which is why I think the discourse around secularism, the discourse around feminism, the discourse around, anything on social media is the worst. It's the lowest form of the discourse. And it's a pity that that's what people would get sucked into. While I agree that it's very progressive, and I've mentioned this Manisha and she completely disagreed with me. And we had this discussion on Hafta on maternity leave. And I said, now that there's paternity leave, this will benefit women, net. But this will net not benefit women because the market does not work on what is progressive or morally right or ethics. People hire based on who they can get most productivity out of. And one can say that you can be unproductive while being in office. These again are very childish level conversations. When one says this, one is assuming that everybody you've hired is irrational. And I know 1 day a month is not a big deal. But any distinction in leaves or productive days will have an impact. And I think that's basic economic logic. It will disincentivize hiring those who would be seen as less productive. It is not my morality or ethics anyone talking. I'm just telling you, this is how markets, workforces, labor works.
But that has to change. And that has changed progressively when it comes to
Where?
women.
Tell me, where has it changed?
There have been many progressive women laws instituted for women, no?
No, they
Starting
have,
with
but what I'm-
maternity leave.
But
So the market, so you shouldn't hire women because, they can get pregnant and we'll have to give them maternity
No, but
leave.
that is what I say. That is why paternity leave also
Yeah, but not every
equalize that.
country has paternity leave.
I know,
right?
but that is why in those countries there will be a disincentive.
But there are a lot of...
No, but-
in the beginning when maternity leave, there wasn't paternity leave. And the
assuming-
market did kind of accept the fact
It
that,
did not.
this is...
No,
but
no,
it has
assuming-
to.
no,
You can't go
assuming-
by that logic.
assuming that the women will be less productive because they are getting more leave is also a wrong thought.
And one
I
day...
don't think, the productivity is not linked, that way.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Of course it's not. You can't say someone who takes less leave is more productive. I'm saying when you hire, one is not hiring on the basis of, I don't know you. I'm hiring on the basis, it's a digit, it's a metric, it's not a person you hire. You hire a CV. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
No, see, you are saying what the reality is. Fine. Granted, there will be a lot of people who will discriminate because of this, but that has to change, na?
But it
we can't
won't.
accept
That's what I'm
it.
saying. It
No,
won't.
No, but
the
that's a
whole
very
point.
determinist kind of. It
That
won't
is
change.
the whole
It has
point of
to.
movements like this. It militates against this market logic and it changes it. The same thing happened when the 8-hour work week was instituted. Same thing with 5-day weeks. Now, in fact, there's research and some people have started the 4-day week and there's research that they're more productive. They have more balanced lives.
Yeah,
have
but,
less
but,
disease.
but that's that's a different thing. That's a false equivalence. I'm not saying that won't work, but what I'm saying is for the same task, you have two groups. You're talking, basic arithmetic of productivity for the whole set. I'm talking sets and subsets here. The moment there's sets and subsets, I think assuming that people will change is like capitalism assuming people won't be greedy, or communism assuming everybody has the same need and the same amount to contribute.
No, true. What
I
I'm
think
saying,
it's wishful thinking, and I don't, grudge the capitalists who describe themselves as such from thinking that regulation hata do, greed won't fuck up the market. I don't grudge the communists from thinking कि सबसे equal काम करा दो, सबके aspirations same होते हैं. Similarly, I won't grudge people thinking that this will not impact hiring. It will. We can wish whatever we want.
It may, but that has to change.
That
we
is
don't
what-
just
Oh,
accept it.
no, that
you
is
don't
the
just
whole
sit and
point
say,
of
oh,
the
ye to ho gayi, to now
that
let's
is
just
the
be
whole
fucking
point of the
backward.
movements. The same thing happened when the maternity leave was instituted, right? That was the logic that
Yeah.
women get pregnant, they won't be working. But that changed because people fought against it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People demanded these rights.
And when paternity leave came, then they said there's equivalence, so now it won't make a
No,
difference.
but
to
it's
those
not
hiring.
just
But
paternity
that came
leave
very
is
late.
just one
Parental
year old,
leave
yeah?
is very
Yeah, that's what I'm
late.
saying.
So,
That
but
is,
before that, there wasn't. I mean, there were.
I know, which is why there was a
institutes
disincentive for women being hired. I'm saying that
But
did
they will-
contribute.
Arey, but
Of
there was
course,
also
but-
that also changed. Some companies also realized that no, this is not something that you can discriminate against, and this is their legal right to have maternity leave.
Maternity leave
those
became
incremental
normalized.
changes will happen, and I think in this case also there will be an incremental change in a
There'll
small
be
change at least.
resistance.
In
I
some,
mean, yeah, people will resist
we're
it.
not
Of
saying
course,
everyone will
but it'll
embrace
happen.
it, but there will at least be something. And here, it's a biological thing. Yeah, you can't grudge one day to a woman for something that she has to go through, and for some women, it is really, it can be. A day on which she can't
but
work.
those are not things that one can even debate about, that you can't grudge. I'm not even talking about whether you can grudge, you can't. I mean, those are.
But you are
those not-
grudging. I mean, the market is grudging this, no?
No.
Quote unquote.
Anyway, all I'm saying is कि भाई ठीक है, आप अपने ख्याली पुलाव बनाते रहो. आप जो बोल रहे हो maternity leave से बहुत फर्क पड़ा. फर्क was counterproductive. If you think maternity leave incentivized companies from hiring women, you should check out the data. It disincentivized companies from hiring women.
No,
That
but-
is, paternity leave has equalized that. So now bloody whether I hire a woman or a man, I will have to give the
But
same
the
amount of leave.
paternity leave is less. It's what? It's what? How many? A month?
10 days.
That depends.
It's 10 days.
it
In
depends
India,
on-
it's 10 days, I
it's-
think.
No, some places it's some.
No,
what you're
maternity
saying-
leave is 9
I-
months
yeah,
at least, right? 9 to 11 months. Maternity leave. Maternity.
No,
No,
3 months.
what you're saying, it's 3 months.
Okay, I'm
yeah.
going by Europe, maybe then. Okay.
No,
In India, it's 3 months.
And even in India, I mean, depending, I don't know what the
No,
Sarkari
but
this
wasn't
thing is.
it increased? Okay,
No,
we
3
should
months.
check
It's
this
not
out.
9,
But
11 months,
anyway,
that's called a sabbatical in our
but
country.
even in paternity, but even in paternity and maternity, there's a huge difference. So there's still an incentive to hire a man because he'll be gone for 10 days, she'll be gone for 3 months.
Oh,
So I mean, it doesn't really equalize
I know
anyone.
companies that also give like 2 months paternity leave. I mean, the paternity and maternity, the difference is very little for some companies. I mean,
And
when
I think
think
in
it's 10
India, though,
days.
if a man says, I want paternity leave, they'll just be like, haha, fancy. People like Abhinandan. You want to leave for your kid?
Anyway, anyone else has anything to contribute to this discussion?
No. But I mean, maybe since we have so many scientists and all listening in, maybe the research aspect of how painful is it really for how many number of women would be interesting to know. I mean, what exactly is the biological...
Is there any metric to measure pain, by the way?
I mean, it has to be debilitating. It has to be in a way that you cannot get... I mean,
No,
cramps are
I am
normal.
not saying tum to ataki gaye respect. You're an activist, yeah. I'm saying generally as a scientific, like Scoville units measure the chilliness of something. I'm
That
asking
I
as a
don't
general curiosity. Has there?
I think
have they developed
I mean, I'm sure there must be some metric of knowing.
Okay,
Giving
our
Giving
producer
birth out?
Aditya has just informed us that someone had done research of what is more painful, getting kicked in the nuts or giving birth. Now, of course, Aditya, that'll depend on who's kicking you in the nuts. if it's just a gentle person kicking you in the
Also,
nuts.
please, yaar. What a random, whoever did this research is really a nut.
I want to know,
Right?
how did they do that research? They said, ऐसा है. निक्कू तुम अभी तुम आदमी हो ना? चलो हम तुम्हारे हम तुम्हारे पोतड़ों को पीटते हैं. फिर 1 साल बाद तुम जरा सेक्स चेंज करा के आओ. फिर हमें तुम इम्प्रेग्नेट करेंगे. फिर तुम बताना मुझे. How can this research even be done? Like, what the fuck?
No, but imagine, I mean, the imagination these people have and the kind of work they're allowed to do. I mean, I'm sure this is
Aditya,
somewhere
did you
in
read this in
in
Swaraj?
Europe or somewhere.
Because, please be clear, because you are a responsible producer of a responsible show. So when you whisper these things from a corner, please make sure you.
No, I'm sure this is somewhere in the West, because they get to even do this. I mean, it's tells you a lot about the kind of society there.
So, okay, very proudly, Aditya has shown me. It's on. Acha, the European is called the dolorimeter. Okay. So there is something.
There is
they
something
measure.
that you can measure.
All right. Now, before I move on to some other wonderful mails that have come, what Manisha was saying I was being coy about. Pranab Mukherjee, who is very unwell. He's on, in fact, a ventilator. He's been diagnosed with COVID. And Rajdeep Sardesai this morning, I think at some 8:30 or 9 in the morning, tweeted that R.I.P. Pranab, whatever, in his dramatic style. Of course, Pranab's daughter and son said, hello, dad's live. So kindly,
Yeah.
responsible news people don't.
And Rajdeep is mostly found on Twitter giving gyan on why journalism is going down the drain and why we must not.
and then
Is
he
rat
apologized
race mein
for-
please mat shubh prabhatam shubh whatever. What does he say?
Yeah,
Good night, shubh ratri. Don't join the rat race. And then he goes and does this. But he apologized
falling
quite
for the fake
sincerely and
news.
said, I'm very
So, ek to this
shaken up.
excitement. Now, this is the market logic. I'm just saying that Rajdeep spent so much of his time payloading gyan and giving everybody advice on journalism, which I think you have to be real villa to listen to, because most of the advice is just shit. This is what I'm saying. Market logic determines actions, not your well-meaning attitudes. Your metric for success is Twitter followers. Twitter followers, again, by who breaks news first. Your metric for success is who watches you. Who watches you depending on who breaks news first,
You're
not who
right.
breaks it more accurately. That sets up a conditioned reflex of wanting to be the first, even if it's not the most accurate, because the metric that is rewarded by the market is speed, because that rewards how many people watch you. So I have known Rajdeep for years. He's not a bad guy. He may be a really boring uncle full of himself way past his prime, but he's not a bad guy.
I don't know what's a bigger insult. I'd rather be a bad guy, I'd rather be bad than a boring auntie full of herself way past my prime.
Okay, but
We snide one.
But the thing is, this metric has been internalized by an entire generation of journalists. That मैंने break करना यार.
I think the bigger blunder that he did, or which happened on prime time TV, was his interview with the Saudi Owaisi, where he asked him to asked him, what about Saudi Arabia? Will you condemn Saudi Arabia also? Now that you're condemning majoritarianism in India, I think that interview was a train
At
wreck.
Indian Express,
I don't know why.
Yeah, that was a terrible interview, man.
At Indian Express,
It's
when,
right from the playbook of the right
when
wing.
it comes to deaths, so we categorically we told all the reporters
Hospital.
it has to come from the hospital.
Yeah. That's
Always.
how you.
I mean, we don't have to
But
announce
you
it.
know, with Jayalalitha also, because print has the luxury of waiting for the next morning. When Jayalalitha, she was in the hospital, I think 3-4 times some news channels declared her dead before started running
Yeah.
But
because it was crazy.
it's not a matter of luxury. I mean, why this TV media is so shallow
Yeah. No,
when
you're
it
right.
comes to breaking, because I know
Because breaking is the metric.
in Aaj Tak, Prabal Pratap Singh,
Prabal Pratap Singh.
he came rushing to me that एक plane गिर गया सर, प्लेन गिर गया यहाँ पे दिल्ली में, 12 लोग थे उस पे मर गए. तो मैंने कहा ठीक है, let me also confirm it. So I was just doing that, and then this now Star का जो CEO है, what is his name, Uday was my news director. Uday came, he said Raman, Prabal was telling him कि Raman is not letting it breaking it. So he said कि I mean यार Raman, Prabal ठीक है, ठीक ही होगा, कर देते हैं. मैंने कहा यार देख ले, कहता बड़ी बात है, कहता नहीं कर देते. मैं करो. After 5 minutes, it turned out to be a dummy exercise. I mean, the airport.
Achha, they were just doing they were running
they were just running it. Ki, what will be the response in case there is a
Accident.
accident. Then after that, Prabal Pratap Singh को हमने कोट डलवाया, टाई डलवाई कि बैठ के बता कि डमी एक्सरसाइज क्या होती है. But we for 5 minutes.
डमी एक्सरसाइज होती है जब एक जर्नलिस्ट बिना वेरीफाई करे. सर हमें एक प्रिंसिपल न्यूज़ में फॉलो करना चाहिए. You can only report an unconfirmed death if you have committed the murder.
Did you kill him?
If you haven't killed the person, you cannot tell us it's confirmed.
This is. I mean, I used to find it so shallow. I mean, coming from the print.
This is also
And
because
I was.
And I mean, come on, there are news professionals even in television who didn't feel the need to tweet this out. I'm sure every TV journalist knew कि he's in the ventilator and all, but Rajiv decided to tweet it out.
also this is TV ka model, like this is the TV model. I mean, you don't have anything meaningful to say. So if you get this kind of news, you can run with it the whole day.
Right.
You don't have to do anything else. Otherwise, you have to fill that 24/7 time with something else also,
Yeah,
right?
in fact, I want to ask you in Kashmir, and one of our subscribers wrote that we would like Anand also on the Ram Janmabhoomi discussion. So maybe next week when Anand is here, we'll discuss that again because both Mehraj and Anand weren't in town for the most important part of world history that was made last week. When you're saying that you have to fill in airtime, you know, airtime is filled with bhajans and all. Sambit Patra sang some, Navika sang some, Anuradha Podwal lip-synced some. Was all this being beamed in Kashmir?
Yeah, on TV, but I don't think people pay much attention to
they
it.
don't watch
no,
it.
No, they don't. I mean, they watch the TV,
thank
but
God.
I mean, see, that's the thing, no? The distance Kashmiris have from India. I mean, this is a Muslim issue, but it's an Indian Muslim issue as such. So
they don't even
at
watch
the most,
it.
they'll curse Indian Muslims that you didn't do much.
So, okay,
So,
got
yeah.
it.
So you get Tata Sky over there? Or-
Yeah.
But no internet.
No internet. No.
Okay. Okay, now this email is from Shubham Chawla. Dear Hafta panel, I'm writing this letter in response to the one from the last Hafta where a subscriber mentioned she had her name butchered her entire childhood and this safetyism debate. I spent the first 17 years of my life in Chennai, and being a Punjabi whose name is Shubham, he's gift for 2 words, in a city where no peer senior had ever heard of such a name, led my name to be butchered for most of my childhood. Now trying to decipher who was making fun of me and why they did it was a massive waste of headspace. Obviously, I was affected by this growing up, but this does not mean I start calling all those people insensitive, racist, etc. I just dusted my shoulders off and moved on.
You're Abhinandan's best friend. Congratulations.
This, among a million other experiences, makes me who I am. To coddle the minds of young adults and to protect them from the universe under the garb of mental health is just going to create a generation of grown men and women who cannot deal with anything outside their worldview. This entire safetyism debate reminds me of a beautiful quote, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. By
Oh my God.
G. Michael Hawke.
Yeah, I think my mother's written this letter.
So this is Shubham Chawla. So thank you, Shubham, for your mail and thank you for your subscription.
Actually, about that, there's a saying attributed to the Prophet who tells his followers, I don't fear you so much in poverty than I fear you when you're wealthy.
Yes. They said, you want to see the character of a man, give him power.
Oh God.
So, oh God, you're saying I'm doing some uncle thing. But by the way, both of you, instead of giggling, you also got a lot of flack, although I got most of it.
What
For
flag?
being insensitive to this whole mispronouncing names and all. You also, you
Well,
were
you
named.
didn't read it, so it didn't happen.
You did. I read it, but you were not paying attention. He has an excuse. He wasn't here.
Oh, okay.
But
Last week. Yeah.
so Yogesh says, hi NL Hafta team. Recently I binge watched old NL interviews. I realized how abruptly people change their political standpoints after the commencement of Modi 1.0. Anand Ranganathan contributing head of NL turned into a troll. Rahul Roshan is now associated with Op India. Comment on this and also your status quo with these people. Secondly, whenever a new NL interview comes, the name of the person along with the title is written in Comic Sans. There might be disputes about Ram Janmabhoomi and Babri Masjid, but one thing we can all agree on is Comic Sans is a terrible font.
Yes. I don't know you were using that.
Since the past few episodes of Hafta, Abhinandan is getting a lot of flack for his views on safetyism. Safety is an American issue more than it is Indian. So is Black Lives Matter. The inner activist of all Indians awakens to these issues while they remain dormant when it comes to issues like casteism, mob lynchings, majoritarianism, etc. Tell me what you think about that. Please don't dodge these questions. So Yogesh, on the first thing, Comic Sans, I don't think it's that bad, but I don't know. I don't know if I chose that font. We'll figure out. Our producers are here.
That is our editors. Okay.
It's an old, inherited. Okay, we'll figure out. Maybe we should change it. A second thing, on safetyism, you're right. It's more relevant in America, but why I mentioned it is because you confront it here also. I confronted among, especially, Manisha, you're the millennial. You're a millennial.
I'm a millennial.
So what do you call the ones who are like in their early 20s right now? Gen Z. So I see a lot of that in Gen Z. And the only reason I reacted to that is because you confront it in your daily lives. Gen Z has a very heightened idea of their relevance in the world, a very heightened idea of their privileges. Some of them are just in their head, which is why I think it's something to comment on. And the certainty that they have of rights and wrongs in things that are grey. Looking at everything as a mathematical theorem. I think this comes from having grown up on screens of social media where every opinion is as important as the other. Some of you may think that this is a nasty thing to say and I'm being insensitive, but I think it is something that is true, and a little bit of humility is good. When I joined Newstrack, I did not immediately think that my opinion was as important as Madhu's or Alpana's or many of the other senior reporters or Sanjay Pugalia's or Ajay Dada or Nakvi Dada's.
It reminds me of an anecdote. So my teacher, my friend Muzammil Jalil. So back in the day, one young kid who had just joined university journalism school. So he came to him, I want to intern back in Srinagar Express office. He said, okay, fine. He said, so I want to start by writing a piece about, I think, how Kashmir and Palestine are like linked and everything. I said, okay, have you read up on this? He said, yeah, I read. Cool. Write a piece, but first hold on to that. Just get me a story about the drains in Old Town.
Yeah. Manisha, you have anything to say on this?
No, I think nothing.
Okay. So also you asked equation between me and people like Anand and Rahul Roshan, and there's no equation as such. We haven't spoken in years and I don't miss anyone. Okay, then there's an email from Dwij. He says, hi, many thanks for the amazing podcast you put together. Abhinandan mentioned Yogendra Yadav's article in the print as an example of the kind of shallow analysis Yogendra engages in. So there's a laughing emoji. While I have found Yogendra's critique of atheism as well as his aversion to leftist ideology to be shallow, I didn't find much of anything in the recent article that can be analyzed to be shallow or otherwise. There is only one paragraph in the article which actually engages the question of how and why secularism failed in India. Then you've gone out and quoted the whole paragraph. Today we must recognize that secularism was defeated because of its custodians refused to engage in the battle of ideas. Secularism was defeated because the secular elite talked down to its critics in English, etc., etc. I do agree that one of the major reasons secularism was defeated was a combination of the elitist image of secularism and the anti-secular appeasement of minorities. However, it seemed quite dubious a claim that secularism could have strengthened itself if it had spoken the language of our religions. Given that this claim was supposed to be the central thesis of this article, I expected Yogendra to actually present an argument in favor of it rather than dropping it as a single line towards the end of the article. I wonder if Abhinandan referred to this utter lack of actual content as the shallowness of the analysis, or was there anything of substance in the article as well which was shallow? In any case, outside the topic of secularism, I usually find Yogendra's work inspiring and in the right direction. If you could refer to other places where his analysis is flawed. Dwij, thanks for your subscription. First of all, thank you for your support. Well, I'll tell you what I found problematic and shallow. You can call it shallow, you can call it lazy, is how it starts. A future historian might record 5 August 2020 is the day secularism died in India. I think there is a tendency of a lot of commentators. In fact, I was by chance reading a few articles last week which I had saved to send to my friends. After Lehman, that capitalism has changed as we know it. Capitalism is dead. I was like, theek hai, pelo all these articles because they'll get clicks, but it's not dead. And clearly Wall Street came back stronger rather than anything else. When a few of these right-wing parties won some seats and some governments in Europe, after Trump won, there were 2-3 elections in Europe also. Kanchan Gupta and all started saying, now
Austria
this is it. Liberals, Lilies can go to hell, whatever. Lilies ka time khatam ho gaya. Now it's the right work shift of the whole world. Within, I think, Poland, there
was Hungary, Orban and
there were
others, and in Poland,
slightly, left liberal parties won, Macron won, so I think there is a tendency that every now and then, this is the end of this. The queen of this was Tavleen Singh, who had said this is the end of Arvind Kejriwal around in 5 articles, which I used to wonder why Indian Express can't find someone else. Matlab, you have said, Acha, isne resign kar diya, this is the death knell. His shallow politics is finished. He came back, he won again. Oh, this is the death knell. Now his shallow politics, then he bloody won and came again. So I think that is the kind of shallow analysis which I think this indulges in. It takes a position which is not a mic drop moment. That is not the world we live in. It keeps evolving and changing. Secondly, when he said that the elite refused to engage with secularism, I mean, I'll give you an example, and I give this example in a panel recently. A film like Amar Akbar Anthony. It had, khoon flowing from 3 sons going into the same father, like scientific,
Unscientifically.
like Jawaharlal Nehru's scientific temperament wale speech to, but it was a secular symbolism. Pop culture was full of this.
Yeah.
He has just made a claim. When I grew up, the Shahra was the most important fair here in Dehradun. And Dehradun had Inamullah building, which is a Muslim area. During Dussehra, even Inamullah building used to be dressed up. What do you want them to do? Burn themselves? There was no one was laughing at anyone's religion or anything. I mean, I think in pop culture, in daily occurrences, I don't think religiosity or anyone's religion was attacked. I think the reasons for the rise of this are way more complex. There are economic reasons, very important economic reasons. There are reasons of how information has been weaponized in ways that it hadn't been earlier. What Yogendra has done has just pandered to clickbait. So when you say that the elite refuse to engage with religion, give us how. You've just said that, like not one link. He has said.
Also, it's just fashionable now to say, blame liberals only for lack of, of course there were some issues, but there's a bigger issue of the rise of BJP.
So he says secularism was defeated because the secular elite talked down to its critics in English. Secularism was defeated because it disavowed our languages, because it failed to connect with the language of traditions, because it refused to learn to speak the language of our religion. What is he talking about? Tell us, how did that happen? When did that happen?
Fail to understand. In any case, I haven't read the whole article, but even this paragraph is full of what is minoritism?
Just make a claim. Okay, the
I've seen
Shabano.
other people
even,
use this.
Even Rajiv Sardesai said this when he got criticized for OVC interview. We must not accept minoritism, appeasing minority.
So you can say that we must not accept something like the Shabano case being overturned like this. And you should also say we shall not accept the Supreme Court saying that, oh, this was very wrong that happened, but chalo bana lete hain. But you can't just make a claim without saying that this is why this claim is accurate or true. So that's why I thought it was just
historical processes are one. Secularism doesn't end on one day. Another thing is these historical processes are way more complex than this thing. Somebody said something in English. It doesn't work like that.
And I'll say
the Indian Republic came into being in 1947. RSS was formed in 1925. They have been working for much longer.
Their project is much, yeah, exactly. And the thing is that, I think Yogendra has his heart in the right place. And again, I think he's a sweet guy. And I'm telling you this from also having been with him on his campaign trail back then. That video of his that went viral when in the campaign, he's saying, "Mujhe to Salim bulate the. Mera naam Salim tha." Because he was campaigning in New, that's a Muslim dominated area. Yogendra has a tendency of wanting to please whichever audience at that time he wants to please. Like, if he truly believed in what he believed, he says, "My name is Yogendra Yadav. Vote for me if you believe Aam Aadmi Party should win the seat from here. Not my name is Salim. I'm to half Muslim." Arey, why? I've seen him say this on stage. He does these kind of pandering things and he thinks that everyone does it. Everyone doesn't. The rest of the world, in even the smallest town and biggest cities, Dussehra was celebrated धूमधाम से. Religiosity, मैं कितने हवनों पे बैठा हूँ और मैं जानता हूँ हर school, even the most elite schools, had to do these things and no one was criticizing them. None of us had the fucking balls to criticize it because you'd be thrown out. So this is just pandering to a digital audience which he thinks will get clicks. So that's why I just thought
it's a bit shallow also, like you said. You explained to us how the elite failed.
One of my recommendation is also there. This Pranab Mukherjee, he wasn't harsh as you were, calling him shallow and all.
Strange.
So Pranab Mukherjee has written an article 2 days ago as a response to Yogendra Singh's piece, where he's saying that Yogendra Yadav. Yogendra Singh is a famous sociologist. Sorry. So here, basically, his argument is that nationalism has colonized both religion as well as secularism. So he is telling him that you are shallow, but he's not using that word, but he's saying it very nicely.
Anyone else wants to weigh in on this before I move on to other mails? This mail is from, okay, I'm going to mispronounce it, so you can send the hate my way. I think it's Himaja Milavarapu. Hi folks, you need to stop giving lazy excuses when people point out something that you are doing incorrectly. This email is specifically about mispronouncing Tamil Nadu, Kannada, Karnataka. The irony of me reading that mail and oh dear God. You guys seriously didn't know how Tamil Nadu, Kannada and Karnataka are spelt and pronounced? They are spelt with vowel sounds in the end. I don't understand this arrogance of people from other regions within India when South Indians complain that they are repeatedly pronounced wrongly. Don't even start comparing with names from foreign countries. For fuck's sake, adding a vowel sound of oo is not a tongue twister. Sure, it's not. Sometimes you mispronounce it. Himaja, I don't think it's something to.
Yeah, but look at the mail that we got from the other subscriber whose name Shubham was Shubha.
Shubham.
So now, I mean, so do South Indians don't get North Indian names correct a lot of the times. But that's fine. It's not, it may be tough for you to pronounce it. That's
No,
all.
I still, yeah.
But yeah, of
Also-
course, when if someone corrects it, I would correct. I mean, I would.
Also in languages, for example, in Urdu, you'll never call it Chennai. You'll still call it Madras. You'll
Yeah.
call
Well,
it
there
Karnataka,
even I think
for
most people in
example.
Chennai call
Also,
it
I got
Madras only.
an email from, a WhatsApp message. No, sorry, I think it was a Twitter DM or something from someone who said that actually how you pronounce stuff, you're right about the specifics of Tamil Nadu, Kannada, or Karnataka. But, if I'm in a hurry talking and if I say Kannad, I mean, I don't think I've been racist I just think it's a bit much, that kind of overreaction. And you're welcome to think it's not a bit much. But I think one of the earlier mails that had come, that was talking about having to pronounce everything correctly, and if you don't, you're being lazy, and it's this, that, and the other.
But
Kannada is a
correctly
language, though,
according
by
to
the way.
who? The natives or...
It is. So this actually message said that your tongue develops muscles also depending on what language you learn from an early age.
Yes.
So certain muscles that are required for certain pronunciation and once you've learned a language at an early age, then a particular set of muscles get developed. So your pronunciation will come out that, because it is a conditioned reflex. Like, like driving or tying your shoelace while talking to someone who knows how to do it, but someone who's not learnt it.
That's why you have accents also, right? I mean, I have been reading and writing and speaking English for, I think, 20 years now.
But you still have a Kashmiri accent.
Yes, and also, I mean, if there's a word with R or two R's in between it, I find it very hard to pronounce it. Even speak it, let
have a
alone
major
pronounce it
problem
correctly.
with this ja and ya being Punjabi. Ja and ya.
Like my father, player.
Player, Mayer.
And
Mayer.
I have seen even Modi, Sir or Shah.
वो तो I think
Gujarat-
Gujarat.
अरे
Pahadi
हमारी
songs
आशा
also.
जी यार, I will still sing Asha Bhosle and Lata Mangeshkar
Or
song,
even, I mean-
although they can never pronounce jha. मुझसे मिलने आए सारी सारी रात मुझसे बोल दो या मुझसे क्या होता है. I don't say all your bloody Marathis are bad. अबे नहीं झो होता,
No,
मत करो
and
झो
I mean,
यार.
I have so many friends, I mean, from Kerala or from Tamil Nadu who cannot speak a lot of words, North Indian, I mean, Hindi words. They can't pronounce it correctly, and it's fine. And I really take offense at people laughing at them, though. Like North Indians saying,
Yeah,
oh,
you cannot
why can't you
laugh.
pronounce this correctly? They can't pronounce it. Yeah, they can't. It's not their language.
No,
It's
but
fine.
I mean, I'm just saying that just listen to any of Lata Mangeshkar and Asha Bhosle's song where there's a jha in it. And tell me if you think that they are being racist. And it's their profession. They should learn.
But sure, if someone corrects me and says, hey, this is how you pronounce it, can you pronounce it like this? I will do it. I won't care.
Absolutely, which is why I made sure I said Kannada, Tamil Nadu, and this thing right now.
Tamil
But
Nadu था पर ना Tamil
मैंने
Nadu.
एक बार Tamil Nadu बोल दिया था ना. They're saying it's not Nadu, it's Nadu. See, you're again getting confused. Tamil. Tamil. So Amrik Diol says, so guys, we're not offending anyone, but maybe for a moment consider, if every battle is a battle worth fighting for, then you'll have very few battles for energy left for. Long time subscriber and fan of all of you. I've been wanting to write for a long time. Maybe I'll write a bit more praise for you some other time. And some gripes. I listen to all your podcasts, especially Homp, Awful and Awesome, Hafta. I really appreciate the value Hafta adds to Newslaundry, as there are times I want to avoid news at all cost. A casual discussion on news is still okay to digest. Nuisance is a great format. I have been promoting Nuisance a lot.
Yay, thank you.
And lastly, the reason which pushed me to find time to write this mail is Abhinandan Sada Nikupra, for your birthday. I will gift 12-month worth of subscription to Newslaundry Students Program. Amrik,
So
I have been
sweet.
informed by Chitranshu, this has already come in. Thank you so much, Amrik Pra.
What
It
a
is-
sweet guy.
Thank you. That is a
You
wonderful
can't just
birthday
thank.
gift.
You have to do more than thank you.
Okay, we will
Find
send him
other ways of-
we will send him a Sabki Dhulai kit.
Yes.
This thing.
Yeah.
The soap kit. And there is a student subscription program that we have for those who can't afford to subscribe to Newslaundry. We have several people who contribute and they sponsor the subscription for many students. So if you want to do that, do write into us at contact@newslaundry.com. Then this email is from Ushma. Hi Team Newslaundry. This unprecedented lockdown led to an unprecedented NL interview binge watch. My favorite one has to be Abhinandan Tavleen, for it showed the crazy of an otherwise renowned journalist. I also thoroughly enjoyed listening to Arun Shourie. For all the complaints in the Hafta letters about a right-wing voice, I should point out that his or Pavan Verma's is a voice that the right-wing should consider right no more. I want to talk about two things. Interview credibility. in the Manisha Srivastav, Madhu Rajat, or even Madhu Karju
Karju.
interview, there is a direct attack on the interviewer's credibility. Who attacked the credibility?
That Srivastav guy, who went after NDTV.
Oh, right.
He had some money laundering case,
correct,
which
correct,
proved
yeah.
to be false.
Which was, yeah.
Later on.
So it was perhaps an attempt to avoid questions, but the comment section presented a different story. How do female journalists recover from and maintain a hard line of questioning? Also, it was in stark contrast to Abhinandan Tavleen interview where he gets back at her. Second is the mental health and comedy. In the light of Navika and Ankita's learned judgments on depression, I wanted to share this stand-up. And this one, for the safetyism listeners, there are links there, which we'll put in the mail, which will be published. But also maybe we should have cancelled Times Now and the likes long ago. Please get Shravan Chakravarti to write for you again.
Chaudhary.
Sorry, it's Chaudhary to write for you again.
Oh yeah. I haven't
It's
seen
been a
his
while.
pieces anyway.
So
I recover quite fast. I'm not that phased.
she's
by-
a tough cookie.
Yeah. It's fine.
She's a toughie.
She doesn't need the holiday then.
But I'm dying to do another interview of Tavleen. I just hope she gives
And
it.
yeah, I
'cause
think Madhu's also like, she's super confident. I don't think she lets Karju and all bother.
So Madhu did an interview with Tavleen recently. Okay.
Madhu done with Karju, where he also attacked her.
This email is from Arjit. I was going to write to you after I heard your views on the holidays on Hafta 286. I got lazy and saw that Sonali did a fine job of representing part of my view. I might have let the matter lie had I not heard your response to her. The crux of your response to her was to fixate on the concept of right versus duty. But that's not what elicited your original comment, was it? Was this person who wanted a day off on a particular day the Michael Jordan of her team playing Game 5? Actually, it was not a her, it was a he. My bad. Playing Game 5 of the World Series. What do we know about how important that person's presence was on the day he or she asked for a holiday? Nothing. That didn't stop you from viewing the request negatively. So it's specious to bring in examples of a journalist missing a big election day or Scottie Pippen sitting out a crucial game because they simply don't apply it to the example at hand. Here's what you've missed about the concept of holiday as a right. While it is a right, the only exception one can have of the employee is that he/she aligns with their supervisor on the when. The why shouldn't matter to the employer. 90% of us, and it appears to be true for the example being quoted, do not work in jobs where absence on any one day can have catastrophic consequences for the team. So why should anyone sit in judgment on whether someone wants to spend a day scratching one's nether regions on the couch in front of the TV or needs a day off for a more genuine reason? I've worked in India for 9 years and worked outside of India for another 9. I've worked in Europe, an employee's paradise, and in the US, which has a well-earned reputation for not being an employee-friendly society. I worked for Indian managers in Europe and Indian managers in India. Nowhere have I encountered the Indian attitude to vacations. Employees and line managers in India treat vacation as some sort of privilege,
That's true.
a favor being doled out to employees and something that requires a justification to take. Only in India will you hear the concept of applying for leave and being rejected. And only in India will you hear about the phenomena of lying to take holiday because there's a list of valid reasons to
Bump
take a
off
day
your
off.
grandmother.
Wage slavery may be an overstatement, but the my bap mentality of employees and bosses in India appear to be alive and well. I don't mean to hector you into changing your opinion. I just felt your arguments were on really weak ground and perhaps lacking awareness. Thank you for continuing to engage with criticism in good faith. Arijit. Thanks, Arijit, for the mail. Thank you for your subscription and your support and your disagreement. Anyone wants to come in?
Arijit is my kind of a person. There should
But-
be 4-day work
sorry.
weeks.
But no, seriously, this vacation bit like that, I learned at my first job. Like, it was, you were really looked at as a criminal if you took leave, And
I
as a
used to-
result, no one in the office ever took
Listen,
leave.
I have worked 7 days a week for almost, I think, 10, 15 years. So even I used to look at, if somebody is asking for leave, I will, he's a fucking criminal. Why is taking
I
leave?
would-
Because I worked for 7
Sir,
days.
क्या कर रहे हो सर हमारी यहाँ पे
I
No,
hope you have
I would-
evolved since then. I hope you have evolved
Since
No,
then,
I
I
since
have,
just
I
come
have.
back from
But
it.
even now, sometimes I get irritated. Even
No,
now.
those
I
irritations
get-
are justified because some people are on leave
I
too
get
often and
irritated.
all that is fine. But this whole thing of, feeling guilty for taking a leave is very real in India. A lot of, at least in my first job, I used to really feel guilty for, and I would prepare for 4 days कि मैं क्या बोलूँगी, क्या reasons होने चाहिए.
And the worst part is, all the research in the world shows that
Yes.
this
More
is bad
productive.
for your productivity,
Yes.
for your mental health, for
Yes.
everything.
So
As long as you're not overshooting the quota of leaves that you're allowed, it's fine.
So, Arijit, I don't disagree with you on much of it. What I do disagree with you is that how can you judge people on what they do with their spare time? I think we all do that. And I don't think there's anything wrong in that. I think what you might want to add another layer is what you judge them for. But that you judge them is an inevitable thing. For example, a lot of my colleagues probably find it really bizarre when I'm interviewing them. But I ask them and I expect them to tell them honestly that do you take substances? You know, do you smoke up? Do you like to indulge in activity which is drugs?
So, drugs.
That's very vocally
Marijuana is
put.
not drugs, yaar.
I ask, whatever. Manisha sometimes is sitting there and she holds her head and shakes it and says, kya kar rahe hai?
जब तक वो cocaine नहीं कर रहे ठीक है.
So, no, but now here's the thing. I may
cocaine
not,
bhi theek hai.
I may not reject someone on that. I judge people if they spend, like, for example, this is something I ask. When you're not working, what do? Do you have a passion? And this is a mantra that I have in life when I'm hiring. If they have a passion, that passion could be a sport, it could be stamp collecting, it could be music, it could be playing the guitar. Nothing, I like to chill out. I judge a person for that. We all judge people for various reasons. Some may do it because of the color of their skin. I'm not saying my parameters are perfect, but we all do it. So I think that I don't ask people, you know, why do you want to take leave? You know, if someone tells me today, calls me today, hello, I can't come today. Then I definitely ask why, because we have a plan for the day. But if someone leaves, I mean, I don't know. I've got a lot of emails that I won't take leave from this. Have I ever asked why are you going?
Why?
No, I mean, I'd never asked that. But yes, I would get irritated by someone if I have a shoot planned. And you're wrong when you say that how important is. Now, that depends from profession to profession. But in my profession, on the day of shoot, even a light man is imperative. Without him, the shoot cannot go ahead.
Yeah, but what he's saying is that we don't know the circumstances of the leave when that person took it. Maybe that day wasn't a very heavy day or whatever.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is that if that employer was a little frustrated, and the Mai Baap culture is not, it permeates everything in our country. It's not just on this. The Mai Baap culture is in families. Acha, Mama, I'm going out. Where are you going? Hey, what is it to you? I'm 45 years old. I'm talking right now, by the way, in case you think I was when I was young. but no, that's the fucking society we live in. Yeah, what do you do? You know? So, like, acha, you'll get late tonight. Why? Where will you be? Fucking, I'm 46, man. You know? None of your
mother
business.
asked me. Even,
Your mother. I don't think that is limited to.
No, office
your
जा रहा
Indian
है.
parents.
You're not wearing
No,
shoes.
it's an Indian thing, yeah.
ऑफिस जा रहा है, जूते डाल के नहीं जा रहा.
So sweet.
बताओ यार.
Can you imagine when I was
मैंने
in
कहा यार
Newslaundry?
मेरे यहाँ पे मैं इनफैक्ट पिक्चर ले लूंगा शॉर्ट डाल कर आते हैं.
Please, I'll be judged for that.
शॉर्ट्स डाल के आते हैं. अच्छा एक दिन ट्रैक सूट डाल के यार ट्रैक सूट डाल के यार ऑफिस. So where
तो
are you
ये
going?
से आपको सीईओ देखना चाहिए. वो तो कई बार लोगों उसको अंदर आने नहीं देते. But Arijit, all in good faith, in good humor. Your points taken.
No, but this about the Indian employers, he's very right about this, because I've been in jobs where, I mean, if even when you go on leave, the whole idea is to relax, but this thing is constantly in your mind. यार क्या हो रहा है? जाएंगे बाद. What
That
will they
guilt
ask?
factors
Where
it.
you've
You
been
should
and
feel
all
guilty
that.
for taking
That
a
shouldn't
leave.
happen.
That's
That
there.
shouldn't happen.
That
Yeah,
should
yeah.
happen.
But yeah, I have nothing more to add on this. So if you have any comments, critique, or suggestions for us, write into us at contact@newslaundry.com. I repeat, contact@newslaundry.com. We have some fantastic merchandise and a Sabki Dhulai soap kit that will be available to subscribers only. We'll tell you how. But for the month of Independence Day, the Sabki Dhulai Independence soap set will be available with subscription. I think 6 months subscription. You can check it out. The details will be on our social media. And do write into us. But guys, just want to point out that July, the paywall is down. The Hafta is available to everybody. It's not only for people who are paying. Our subscribers, about 20% did not renew their subscription, who have been renewing it regularly for this period when it's free. We are developing a website which is flawless so that you guys don't have a problem in accessing Hafta, in accessing our stuff. The reason we've taken this paywall down right now is so while we are making sure that our podcast player is completely in sync with our website, you guys don't have a problem in accessing Hafta. So the purpose of taking down this paywall during this time, which will be another 3-4 weeks, is to make the website more efficient for you. If during this time so many of you don't subscribe and our subscriptions fall instead of rising in the month of July, I get a bit disappointed. So do subscribe. They shouldn't drop off, man. The paywall is going to be back up in 2-3 weeks in any case. So yeah, on that note, but thank you for your support. Love all of your support. I think it is extremely important. I'm thrilled that so many news platforms are going down the subscription route after having told me for years how wrong I was. And I have you guys to thank. Right back in 2013, some of you subscribed. So thank you for that. And our subscriptions keep growing. do spread the word, tell others, at least while our paywall is down and podcast Hafta is free, you can try to convince others that Hafta is free. So, yeah. On that note, let's have recommendations, ladies and gentlemen. Raman, so you want to start?
Pratap Bhanu Mehta's article, which came out 2 days ago. This was in response to, what Yogendra Yadav wrote in the print.
Right.
And is basically he's saying the religion, secularism is dead. This more than this, the debate is actually that how the nationalism is subsuming, religion as well as secularism.
All right.
So, and the second is today T.M. Krishna has written a beautiful on Ram. How does he know Ram?
Indian Express.
Indian Express.
Okay, I'll read it.
It's a beautiful short article. These two recommendations.
So this is a piece by Muzammil Jalil. It was published on the anniversary of the abrogation of Article 37. It's called That Home in Our Heart, an allegory of a struggle against forgetting in Kashmir. It was published in the Inverse Journal. It's a very longish piece, but worth the read. It is a very personal, deeply personal piece of what all these changes mean to us as individuals, as Kashmiris. This is his story as much as it's my story and every other Kashmiri story. So please read this and see what it all means at a personal level. We have heard all these debates about what it means legally, politically, strategically, what it means personally. So it's a little long, but worth the time.
Nice, I'll read it. A piece in Pari, it's headline Coping with a Deadly Virus, a social one too. It tracks the lives of two families who had members tested positive and what they went through. I'll just read the first two bits. It didn't matter that all but one of them had tested negative for coronavirus. The Sarpanch, in agreement with the villagers, had issued a diktat. The family couldn't leave their home for 1 month, though the mandatory quarantine period was 14 days. One of them had been infected with the virus. To make things worse, his was the first reported case in the district of Osmanabad, and he returned from Panipat after attending a Tablighi Jamaat congregation. So how this virus has actually impacted different communities in different ways, and how it's been tougher in terms of social exclusion of some of those people in those communities who've tested positive, Muslims mainly.
Right. So my recommendation actually is a Time magazine article. It's The Next Global Depression is Coming and Optimism Won't Slow It Down. It's by Ian Bremmer. Now, I'm not saying what Ian Bremmer is saying is definitely going to come true or not true. I just think that and I've been saying this for a while, the economic impact of this COVID is going to be so severe that we haven't quite factored it in yet into our lives and forward planning. I suspect Modi ji and Shah are not even aware this may happen. Genuinely, I think that they have no idea. It's an interesting piece, and if you're young, in your maybe 20s, you're just graduating, I think it's important you read this, even if this is not how it plays out. It's good to plan for this kind of a few years if your career is just starting out. Just like I think the generation that saw the Great Depression, it was important for them to know what is in store. So yeah, I think that's why I recommend it. Now we shall end with a song. You know that in Rajasthan, Sachin Pilot met Rahul and Priyanka, or whoever he met, and he said, "Theek hai." Gehlot said, "Theek hai, all is forgiven." Sachin Pilot gave a spree of interviews saying that it was just hurtful, the kind of things that I was called, but in politics, you have to. So whether Gehlot forgives him or not.
Is that code for BJP se baat nahi bani?
Code for BJP se pata nahi, keh nahi sakte BJP se baat bani ki nahi. So today's song is dedicated to the patch up between Sachin Pilot and Gehlot. And it is actually a very famous ghazal, but the recording you want to listen to is, I just discovered this. It's a recording of my aunt, which was taken in the 70s. She was a very good singer. So that's the version you should listen to. Until next time, enjoy the Hafta, enjoy life. Agree, disagree, keep engaging, and expose yourself to more and more ideas. It'll only make all of us richer and better.
वो कहते हैं रंजिश की बातें भुला दें, वो कहते हैं रंजिश की बातें भुला दें, मोहब्बत करें, खुश रहें, मुस्कुरा दें, मोहब्बत करें, खुश रहें, मुस्कुरा दें। जवानी हो गर जाबदानी तो यारब जवानी होगर जाबदानी तो यारब तेरी सदा दुनिया को जन्नत बना दे तेरी सदा दुनिया को जन्नत बना दे वो कहते हैं रंजिश की बातें भुला दे.
All the Newslaundry podcasts are available on Stitcher, iTunes, and any other podcast platform.
Please subscribe to Newslaundry. Help us keep news independent. To catch all our podcasts on news, pop culture, current affairs, and sport, visit newslaundry.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.